All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our August 24th, I can't believe it's August 24th, meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. Tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and our town Facebook page. The public is invited to participate on the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for tonight's meeting. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by me. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant, and all votes taken tonight will be by roll call vote. Any member of the public who wishes to ask questions, please raise your virtual hand here in Zoom and I will help promote you to the meeting. Members must provide their full name and address for public record. Please note that comments on Facebook will not be monitored, and this meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV. So I would like to call our meeting to order with a roll call vote.
Corey Evans here.
Jean Healy-Dippold here.
Diane Kennedy here.
And Carrie Thompson here. And tonight, to do our Pledge of Allegiance, we have Cohasset Boy Scout Josh Young, who's going to be a sophomore. And I'm going to turn my screen for you all to meet Josh. Say hi, Josh.
Hey, guys.
And he is going to lead us in the pledge. The stage is yours.
I pledge allegiance
To the
the
flag
flag of
Of
the United States of
America.
America,
And to the republic
Republic
stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with
and
liberty and justice for all.
Yay, thank you, Josh. Do
You're welcome.
you have anything else you want to say about Cohasset Boy Scouts?
I think I'm all set.
All right, Josh, enjoy the rest of your summer before school starts. Love it. I love meeting young people in town, but anyone who wants to come do the pledge, we are looking for people. So just another shout out that, you know, anyone who wants to come say the pledge is welcome. Hi, Jack. All right.
Hi.
I'm now opening the floor to public comment. If anyone wishes to participate in public comment, please raise your hand and we will promote you. I'm looking to see if I see anyone. I do not see anyone, but if you want to come in for public comment, let me know and we can try to squeeze you in here. All right. Exciting news to begin with. We have some new employees in town. As you know, our town is so lucky to have an amazing staff and amazing employees, and I want to introduce you to a few more new people tonight. We have here joining us in Town Hall, we have our new payroll and benefits person, Betsy Howley, and our new conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel. And I'm going to mute my camera so they can both introduce themselves. They are here. So Charlotte and Betsy, whoever wants to go first, we are so happy to have you. They are unmuting right now.
Make it full screen. Sorry, everyone.
Hi, guys. I'm Charlotte.
Hi.
I'm Betsy
Welcome.
Hill. We're happy to be here.
Welcome.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves real quick.
I'm a mom of two. I live in Situate, and I started here on August 9th. I love the beach and golf.
Welcome.
And I'm from Massachusetts, from Franklin originally. I just started as of yesterday, so this is my second day here.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have Ryan with you, Ted? Or are you just there?
Thank you, ladies. Welcome.
I
We
am
also
just-
have, oh, hi, Ted. So we also
Hi.
have a new assistant rec director, Ryan Walsh. I'm not sure if Ryan is here.
Yeah, he's not with me.
Okay, well, we can have him in another meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Charlotte and Betsy. So nice to meet you both. All right, moving on to our community health update. We are back to these. I know we thought they were over, but we are back. So let's get an update on how the town is doing. Also, sidebar, it was really great that the hurricane this past weekend didn't feel like a hurricane at all, and that went well. So we don't need to give an update on that as much. All right, the Chiefs are coming in, Glenn's coming in. Hi, Chief Quigley and Chief Sylvia. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, everybody.
We're
Yeah,
back. Good to see everyone.
A little bit of a break. Not much.
Exactly. We had a little bit of a summer break and now we're back for our town community health update.
Yeah, no comment about that. After a 2-month hiatus, 2.5-month hiatus, it was
I know.
interesting.
That's the reality. Go ahead, Chief. Get us started.
So Pam is on a very well-deserved vacation this week. So you are going to be subjected to me attempting to give you an update on where we stand. Chris, I sent you a PowerPoint, a very quick set of slides, and we'll see if we can go through these real quick. So as far as the update goes, I think the biggest thing is I want to hit 3 real quick points. One is Delta variant, one is masking, and one is vaccinations. It's real simple that we've been talking about this for 18 months, and we were told all along that it was all about masking, hand washing, social distancing, and so forth. And then we got a vaccine and we thought we were out of the woods. And unfortunately, with the Delta variant, things have changed a little bit. So that being said, next slide, please, Chris. So we talk about the Delta variant. This is from the CDC, and this is the concern. The original Alpha variant, on an average, if you contracted it, you were able to infect 2 other individuals. With the Delta variant, it's 1 to 5 on an average, and it can be higher than that. So as it says in the left column, the variant is more contagious. There is some concern that it does create more severe illness for those that are unvaccinated, and unvaccinated people remain the greatest concern. What you're seeing across the entire country is places with low vaccination rates. Delta is raging. Fully vaccinated people can get the Delta variant and can spread the virus to others. So that's part of the next slide. So next slide, please, Chris. So this is a quick snapshot of the level of community transmission on July the 4th. So when we talk about this, we're talking about the last 7 weeks. So on July the 4th, you can see the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts minus the Vineyard was in the low category. So we fast forward to this week / last week. Next slide, please, Chris. And this is why we're concerned about the Delta variant. So in that 7-week period, as you can see, the vast majority of the Commonwealth is now in the high category. The moderate category, there's us, Norfolk County, and the little hamlet of Cohasset stuck there, wrapped around Plymouth County. So as you can see, in the course of that 7-week period, things have changed drastically, and that's what we worry about with the Delta variant. Next, and that's kind of what I'll speak to a little bit past that in a minute. So what are we doing? Well, this is what we're seeing. There's been almost a 1,000% increase due to the Delta variant in the state. The Board of Public Health met, and they have created an order in regards to masking. So masking was all unvaccinated people must wear masks inside of municipal buildings. And then on top of that, they strongly recommend mask wearing for all individuals, vaccinated and non-vaccinated, in all buildings open to the public. And that includes private business. So again, we're kind of back to you wear a mask to protect others as well as yourself. So the final bullet point there was that given the vaccination and masking is a primary defense against the disease, the school committee and the Board of Health got together and they created a mask policy for the schools themselves. So that was last week. Fast forward to this week. Next slide, please, Chris. Today, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education met today. In case you haven't seen the wording for this, they gave the commissioner the ability to implement universal masking in all public schools. It is expected that the commissioner will do that as early as tomorrow. It hasn't happened today. I spoke with Pat Sullivan, the superintendent earlier today, and the expectation from all of the folks at the schools and all the superintendents is that that will happen as soon as tomorrow. And it's universal across all public schools and through at least October 1st. And they're going to, this is going to give them the ability to open up. And one of the fears is right there embedded in the middle of that, is that any type of virus outbreak would affect the ability of the students to attend classes in a safe environment. So what they're going to do is they're going to require masks. At the bottom of that, you can see that link. I tucked that in there just so that anybody that wants to, and I'll make sure that we put that up on our COVID page. You can go and watch the meeting of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the full meeting, and see exactly what was discussed. And I believe the vote was either 8-1. There was one dissenting vote. And I believe that's a 9-person board, but I'm scratching my head on that. So that's where that kind of lives now. So as of probably tomorrow, so stand by, that we may be told that there'll be universal masking within the schools. Again, with caveats in regards to the same type of stuff that the Board of Health talked about before, that in cases where children can't wear masks or whatever, there will be special circumstances. Okay, next slide, please, Chris. So here's the good news. The good news is that, as we all know about the variant is here. We know it is, and we know that you can get breakthrough infections. And I didn't put this slide up, but just a couple of things to think about. That as of the 21st of the month, 4.45 million people in the Commonwealth have been fully vaccinated. We, I think, have the second highest vaccination rate in the country. Of that, the cumulative total of breakthrough infections out of those 4.45 million is 15,739, or 0.35%. So those that are fully vaccinated, you're in a pretty good place. As far as of those folks, how many people were hospitalized? 571. And of that, there were 131 deaths, which runs out to, all deaths are bad, obviously, but that's 0.003% of the vaccinated public. So that's a good thing. So saying that vaccinations are good, then we look at Cohasset. If you look at that column, the second from the far right, and you see it, the breakdown by age groups, we are at total 81% of the people in Cohasset are fully vaccinated. Now that, of course, doesn't include anybody under the age of 12. So that, more to be seen on that some point in the fall. And the good news on the vaccination front, obviously, we all know that we finally have an FDA-approved vaccine. So with an FDA-approved vaccine, hopefully additional people will continue to join the ranks of us that are fully vaccinated. And that's kind of where we stand. I said, I think that's fabulous news, because the ball game is that if you're fully vaccinated, the odds on you getting very sick, hospitalized, or dying from COVID are very, very slim. So it's possible, but very, very slim. That's it. That's what I have for slides. Available for any questions on any of those. And open it up to Glenn or Chief Quigley if they've got anything additional that they want to mention.
Thank you, Chief. I see a couple hands from Corey and Jean, so we can go to them, and then Chief Quigley and Glenn, I'll let you guys talk. Corey, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Chief, for putting that together, and thanks for kind of bringing it down to really understandable, clear to process format. So when it comes to percentage of people vaccination, obviously the chart you had didn't include under 12s. Do we have any sensation of what percentage of the Cohasset population is under 12 years old?
So there isn't. So yeah, they actually, I don't have it on the, and I should have put it up there, but I believe, I have to, hold on one second. I think I actually have that, but I don't know if I eliminated that from my documents that I had put up. It is on the, and I get that for you, Corey. I apologize for not having that, but that is on the daily sheet. I just didn't include it.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Jean,
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Chief. Quick question. I noticed there was one statistic or set of numbers that showed the people who are who had one dose. And you may not know this, but is that because they had J&J, or is that because they had Moderna / Pfizer and they're still waiting for the second dose? Because it strikes me maybe there's some use in encouraging people to get fully vaccinated if they only have one dose of the Pfizer or Moderna.
So when they put up the stats for fully vaccinated is 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna or 1 dose of J&J. So anybody that's had their 1 dose of J&J is part of the fully vaccinated. So anybody that is in that category of not fully vaccinated yet has yet to have their second dose.
I have one question for you, Chief, and Glenn and Chief Quigley, you might know. I've been getting a couple questions about the booster. Do we know any details about whether that will be given to our first responders, police and fire, anyone in our medical community? Have we heard anything about that, or is that still a little too early to know?
So go ahead, Chief.
I was gonna say Glenn is sort of in charge of our clinics, and we know we've been loosely kicking around the idea of putting a clinic together in the fall for in the same sequence it went this winter. We're sort of at a disadvantage this week because Pam is away, and those guys are trying to track active cases. So we really haven't had time to fully vet it, but maybe Glenn has something further.
Well, the only thing I would say is that we had our after action meeting for our 1.5-year response a couple of weeks ago. And one of the big topics was what will we do going forward? And we have a good model for clinics, which I think we can put into place in short notice if we can see what we're getting for vaccination medicine. The other thing is that starting this Saturday, we're going to ramp up our distribution to town buildings again of PPE supplies. So we're kind of putting our response back into gear and see how much is needed, but we're in very good shape for supplies and inventory. And I think it'll be a lot easier this time around, but we are ready to go, but lots of things we don't know just yet.
Thank you, Glenn.
And, on top of that, just to finish that thought process, right now, what the CDC is talking about is that it'll be 8 months after you had your second dose, so you were fully vaccinated. So for the first responders, our full vaccinations were in February. So it'll probably be November before we'll be looking at that. In the meantime, what they are stressing is that people that have compromised immune systems, that it would be worthwhile for them to receive that booster shot first. So I think that's where they are at this point with that. And they haven't given us any further details in regards to where we are. But if that 8-month standard is what they're going to use, we're going to have to get geared back up in November, December, and January. And hopefully, as Glenn mentioned and Chief Quigley mentioned, we'll be able to do that here. But we don't even know that. That's so far out at this point, they haven't given us any indication on whether or not they'll let us do it.
Okay, Diane, I see your hand up. We also have Dr. Paul Schubert here to answer any questions that we have. So Paul, we can welcome you in to give a quick update too. Just as a former select board member and respected doctor in town, we would love to hear your thoughts. Diane, what was your question?
My question was really just a statement, which is just to send thank you again to all of you on the screen that have been working hard, but also to our school committee and Board of Public Health, who collectively sat through 10 hours of meetings last week in a very emotional topic that's very difficult. I wish the DESE decision had come down a couple of weeks ago, because it would have made our public servants in the local communities lives a little bit easier. But anyway, just a thank you to everybody that's really worked hard behind the scenes as well.
No, I agree. Chief Quigley, Chief Sylvia, Glenn, you guys have been fighting the good fight since this started. And I think we thought we would have a little bit of a longer break at least. And I can't believe we're back here, but I think as a town, we've done an exceptional job of protecting our residents and keeping information out there. So thank you to all of you. Dr. Schubert, come on in and say hi real quick. It's good to see you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so a couple of information fairly recently. The country of Israel has approved boosters for a third dose of a messenger RNA Pfizer vaccine. Initially, they opened it up above the age of 60, and to first responders, police, fire, airline pilots, military, basically the hospital staff. They've lowered that since the 24th of July, and currently they're inoculating everyone at the age of 40 on up with a third booster beginning now. So many of those people were vaccinated earlier than the 8-month protocol that the CDC is recommending for high-risk individuals. I suspect, as we've done in the past, the CDC will follow Israelis' recommendations. It's very good data that even with a third dose, the Delta variant is remarkably depressed in spreading after the third booster or the third in the series. There's 2 weeks worth of data for 60 years of age and up in Israel that the Delta spread has dropped remarkably. The Boston hospitals and probably the rest of the hospitals in the Commonwealth will begin a booster on the 15th of September for those of us in the healthcare field and employees in the hospitals as a third dose. Most of the early vaccinations were Pfizer, which is a messenger RNA type. Some were in Israel, some were J&J. So they're giving a booster there as well for J&J. The good thing is that it's now FDA approved, so there should not be any hesitation from many people that are worried it's not FDA approved. I suspect in the next few weeks, you'll probably see boosters being the age lowered for those who will be getting a third dose of the messenger RNA, whether it be Pfizer or Moderna. Likewise, the Moderna will likely be fully FDA approved, I think in probably 2 or 3 weeks. The lower age groups are also having a couple of studies. So you'll see probably recommendations age from 11 to 5 to 6 months in the next few weeks. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Dr. Schubert. It's good to hear your voice. And again, what's great about our town is that we have doctors like you coming in to give us updates, even as hard as you're working. So seriously, thank you so much. Chief Quigley.
Just since I don't usually get the chance to talk to a doctor real time.
It's kind of fun, isn't it? We got a lot of talent in town.
I'll send them the copay. But if you have a Moderna shot, do you have to have a Moderna booster?
Good question, Chief. I'm wondering the same thing. I'm also team Moderna.
Yeah, so this information is coming, real time right now. The Israelis did not have use of any Moderna messenger RNA vaccine. They had a spattering of J&J, and the majority was Pfizer. The other European countries, many of them had AstraZeneca, which is a viral-based platform. And some of them stopped the second dose for the AstraZeneca. They switched over to a messenger RNA second dose. England, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, I believe, did that. That information will probably be available very soon. As of now, from a logistics point of view, if you got a Moderna or if you received a Pfizer, you'll probably get a Moderna or Pfizer. That overlap or that dual platform vaccination, we're going to get information from England, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark fairly soon. So as of now, the logistics will be you get what you get the first time, the third time.
Interesting. Watch out, Dr. Schubert. We might start asking you to come to more community health updates.
I'll stick my nose in.
All right, Chief Quigley and Glenn, anything else from the two of you?
No, I think Chief Sylvia did a good job covering it.
Yes, good PowerPoint, Chief Sylvia. And again, because this is such a quick moving thing, we will be doing these community health updates until further notice at all future select board meetings. So we'll be back in a couple weeks right before school starts. Hopefully we'll have some more information by then. But thank you everyone for continuing to fight the good fight. And everyone watching now, please get vaccinated if you have not yet. All right. We might have lost Jean. I'm not sure where she went, but we can move on to give a quick update about the upcoming Safe Harbor Vigil, which is in exactly a week from today. And we have Lori Pearson here to tell us a little bit about it. Speaking of community health, this is another really important aspect, right, Lori?
Of course. So I'll give a little introduction. My name is Laurie Pearson. I am the interim director while Nicole is away on maternity leave. She just had her son.
She did.
He did on Saturday. Congratulations to Nicole.
Little baby boy, congrats to Nicole.
I know. So if you see her, hopefully you don't. Hopefully she's home. She's a workaholic though, so you never really know. So I'll be quick. We have our 4th annual overdose awareness vigil coming up actually a week from today, August 31st. Community members are welcome to gather from 6:45 to 8 p.m. on the Cohasset Town Common. So kind of right in front of the town hall on that green space. There'll be words of guidance, hope, and loss from our community members. We actually have 2 youth singers this year, Lizzie Powers and Madeline Clark. So that will be pretty awesome to hear from our youth. We will be remembering those who have been lost to any kind of substance use, uplifting the families of those who have lost someone, and acknowledging the strengths of those among us who have been struggling with addiction. We will be having a remembrance presentation or a slideshow with photos of those who have been lost, of our community members and family members. So if you have any pictures that you'd like to be sent in, you can feel free to email me before before next week. My email is lpearson@cohassetma.org. That's my little spiel. Hopefully we can see you guys next week. It will be a pretty awesome event. My first event. I'm pretty excited for it. So
I will say I've been to this event the past couple of years and it's really touching and moving, and it's a great way for the community to come together. Everyone in our town at this point has some type of connection or experience with addiction, and this is just a really powerful event. So anyone who is available next week, if you're listening, anyone in the community, it's a really great way to come together and support a lot of really important people in town. And thank you, Lori, for all your help with this.
of course.
Any other questions for Lori about the vigil? All right, hoping for good weather, Lori.
Me too. Cross your fingers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, moving on to a quick update about the Scituate Coast Guard closing station. Chris, I know you're on here. I will say this is an ongoing matter. For those who don't know, the Coast Guard and the federal government has been considering or is planning to close the Coast Guard station in Scituate. Obviously, we have a vested interest in this. We've talked about it at a couple other meetings, but it does affect Cohasset residents, especially those who might need the Coast Guard and who are out on the water. We were supposed to have a press conference tomorrow about this, but our federal delegation has all been called to DC, so we do need to reschedule. Chris, do you have any further updates on this issue?
I do. So the communities between Hull and Plymouth have all banded together because it affects all of us and all of our commercial fleet and all of our recreational boaters. And there's a unanimity that the Scituate Coast Guard Station, which I'm told was once a full-time station, even seasonally, which from Memorial Day to Columbus Day is super important to the safety of the entire boating community. The tentative date is next Tuesday, same location down at the Scituate Harbor Master's office. About 10:30. So that's the tentative date. I'll send all of you updates when we have it confirmed. Again, the goal is to have as much of the federal delegation there as possible because this is a critical federal issue. It's just, the only stations being, seasonal stations being targeted at the moment are a few in the Great Lakes and this one. And, it's funny because there's always a big annual opening of this. It's a celebration in Scituate. People come down and talk about how great it is. And here they are talking about eliminating it. So there's been a great community effort. All the communities are working together on this. So I think we're optimistic that we'll get a strong message out next week.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We're continuing to fight this, obviously, And especially since there have been recent rescues in Situate, a couple being Cohasset residents that have needed those rescues. And, you know, it's just such a timely issue. I'm hoping that we can fight the good fight here. Jean, I saw your hand first, then Diane.
Yeah, so following from the federal comment that we did 2 weeks ago, I think, I guess my question is, what specifically are we planning on doing in addition to a press conference? And when I say we, I really mean like, you know, the
region.
greater set of community, because I do think a federal agency will, yes, respond to the federal delegation, but it would also be helpful to get specifics, including the amount of people within our various communities that boat, the amount of rescues that are needed throughout the years, to present the sort of narrative combined with the data, I think is a powerful way to advocate, including to the federal government. And so I'm just curious as to what's going on that front.
So I know that there's been repeated requests made for actual data that the Coast Guard has been less coming with, which I'm not quite sure why. So there's been a lot of requests made and through the federal delegation to say, hey, we know you record this stuff and we know it's important. So please share with us that data. So I know there's been multiple requests made for the last month for this. I do not have an update as of today, but last time I heard they had not downloaded that yet. So but there's been requested.
I did reach out to both Reps Moschino and Rep Kearney too, who are trying to gather that data for us. Jean, it's a really good question. I think if we can get it though, I think that maybe us as a board sending some letters out or making an official statement in addition to the comment that we already submitted could also help. But again, the point of the press conference is to kind of rally up some media attention and get people a little more interested and excited about this too. So I'm hoping we can do something else, but I think we need to get more data first.
I also think that the board can, I think it would be a good idea to have a more formal letter.
I agree.
Because the comment period's been extended to September.
So maybe I can work on getting a draft of the letter together to have on our agenda for next meeting as well, if everyone's okay with that. Diane.
Yeah, thank you. I was pretty much going to say what Jean said. I have had a few people reach out to me, and one of them was, if there's a Coast Guard station at Point Allerton and Hull, wouldn't they service Cohasset? And so why is Cohasset, advocating for the retention of the station? So, I obviously was able to answer it a little bit, but I do think it's important to have data just to show what what their full coverage area is and why it's important, et cetera. So thank you.
Oh, I agree.
Jump in on that. So remember, I made this comment to the reporter that I talked to. Our boaters and our commercial fleet don't stay in Cohasset. They go.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So, and just like the Plymouth boaters come up here. So the Coast Guard provides support to everyone once they leave the harbor, not just inside the harbor. And patrol areas from basically Plymouth to Hull. And by the way, it would actually impact response times to Cohasset too, because it's faster to get from Situate to Cohasset than from all the way around Hull and then all the way to Cohasset if there was a problem in Cohasset. So the impact is the fact that people go out and they boat, right? So they're out there in the waters, and the Coast Guard covers all of that turf. Plymouth is particularly impacted because there's another zone. The problem is that zone apparently goes all the way down the other, it patrols a canal. So if the boat happens to be the other end of the Cape Cod Canal, it's not getting back to Plymouth at any time at all. So Plymouth is actually afraid they're going to get nothing. They'll have no support services. And there's a lot going on down there. I know you're shaking your head. We're all shaking your head. And by the way, our commercial fleet is out in the Cape Cod Bay too. They're in the and they're scalloping, and we have people sailing out there. And the Coast Guard is just a different, they're the only intermunicipal fleet out there. I mean, we all have our harbor masters and some have police boats, but the Coast Guard is the only kind of rescue operation that exists of its kind.
Well said, Chris. Exactly. And we're talking about the whole South region, like you said, up till the bridge on the Cape. I mean, every town is impacted. So I think it is really important we come together regionally to talk about this. Jack and then Jean.
Yeah, I have had a fair amount of experience on the waters out there. One of the advantages that Situate has is it's centrally located between Boston and the canal. It's also, you get right out to the open water instead of having to go along circuitous route out there. And we have several high kind of danger, if you will, recreational areas. We have our spit that we know of. We have the spit in Situate. There's a lot of recreational traffic. And the thing about recreational traffic, it's frequently many of the boaters, not all, but there are many boaters who are more on the amateur line, and they're the ones who are likely to need that help. And in that type of an emergency situation, 5 minutes is the difference between living and dying. So I think we need to make that, very, very clear.
No, you're right, Jack. That's a very good point too. It is way harder for the people in Hull, the Coast Guard, to get around and out to the main ocean, which is where a lot of problems happen. So I think proximity of being able to help people is also a really strong argument that we can add to our letter. Jean. Oh, you're muted.
I was just gonna say, before I go for seconds, I think Corey raised his hand before me.
Did you, Corey? Okay. He took it down, so I thought he was okay.
Okay.
Go for seconds.
All right. If I just might suggest, because I used to do federal comments as the state, one thing that we did, and maybe this is what everyone is thinking, but I'm just going to say, just to be clear, is that we did a multi-state comment. And so we would partner with all of the different states in America that were in agreement with what we were saying. And we could do the same thing here. And so we could do one sort of omnibus comment with all the towns up and down the South Shore. Everyone signs on, and that ends up being usually a pretty powerful comment, because you can, for example, I'm sure the harbor masters have numbers on the amount of boats that are coming in and out of the harbor, as well as, boating incidents that they might respond to. You could get a lot of data. And so instead of it just being Cohasset with our small amount of, boats and from a comparative standpoint, now you see the big picture. And I do think that if we can pull it off, and it doesn't need to be like, it can be in a letter that we would otherwise send also to the federal delegation, so they would have the information at their fingertips. But then we could file it based on the extended deadline as well. And I do think, and then it's official, it's in the record, and they have to consider it. And so it could be a very lengthy comment or just a short, succinct comment with lots of data and information signed by many, many, many interested parties in towns.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jean. So it seems like we have to get some of this data and then we can start drafting how to do this. I think that's really smart. Even, the ferries that are going by Cohasset and Cohasset Harbor, it's, there's so much activity that is happening in our Cohasset waters, but also going through all of the waters in this whole district. Jack and Corey, you both had your hand up at the same time.
No, I'm done.
Corey.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, to me, this doesn't really seem like a decision it's being made based on data. I don't think there is any data that supports the closing of the station. I think we can cite a million things. This feels to me like there's a political calculation here. There may be some sort of change in perspective for the Coast Guard or something like that. So I do think that our time would be very well spent pressuring, speaking at least with our federal, representation, because there's a big infrastructure bill out there and there's a lot of stuff. And, they're really, if this is a political decision that's being made for political, whatever reasons, that's really going to be the angle that we're going to have the best luck. We can cite all the numbers we want. They could just turn around and say, oh, well, we've given your police department more money, so, we don't need to take care of you anymore. And that's just not an accurate kind of report. So, I like the data, but let's not if we don't get it, let's not that hold us up, because I think this really is a political decision, not so much just a data one.
Yeah, no, we need to talk to Congressman Lynch and Keating and Senators Markey and Warren on this. So let's make that our goal in the next couple of weeks too, to get our voices heard there. Jean?
And again, that's why it helps having a letter with every town up and down the South Shore signing on, even if we don't get the data. And I agree with you, Corey. Part of it is just the show of strength, everyone together united.
All right, we will be continuing this discussion in the next couple of weeks and at our next meeting. So thank you everyone for the input. It seems like we have unanimous support here. All right, any other questions or comments on that? All right, moving on to an update about our town clerk retirement and interim appointment status. Chris and Miriam, hi.
Hi.
I'm hoping you have some good news for us, better than last time.
Well, I'll go first, Chris, unless you want to start. I don't have better news for you than I did last time. We have continued to search in every direction, network, talk to people, ask them to talk to people. And right now we have no active identified candidates. We had an internal candidate, but she has changed her mind. We have approached a couple of other people today. And so there, there's a possibility that one of the three people I talked to today might come back. I did the best I could to pitch the opportunity, but anyone working is not interested in leaving their job for an interim and then elected arrangement. We've talked to another internal candidate, made sure that she understood that there would be no risk in her leaving her current job to take this interim role. She's going to think about it. So we're just keeping on with the search. Certainly anyone that any of you know that is detail oriented, doesn't have problems with computers or numbers, has a customer service orientation and some understanding of municipal life and what we do in the town clerk's office, we would be happy to talk to them. At this point, our current town clerk cannot work on Wednesdays after, so we're closing the office on Wednesdays. You may have seen that on the website. So she is working with me certainly to try to vet anybody who might have any level of interest. So, and she is committed to helping them transition into this role. But as of yet, we do not have any candidates to present to you. I'm hopeful that 2 weeks from now, we will.
And this is tough because we are looking for a unicorn, right? Someone that is willing to do this job just very temporarily. And I get that that is not an easy ask. I know we were hoping to get more by now, but it's a tough ask. I get it. Corey,
and we also have that disadvantage that Cohasset is a beautiful, beautiful place to go to,
right?
But it's
not
hard
easy to get to.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know. Corey.
Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing trying to find, and thanks to everyone that's currently in the clerk's office. I know that they're doing everything they can to get this work done, and there's just stuff that happens. So my question is, if I forgot who it was, one of the board members here brought up the idea of potentially entertaining a reform of the clerkship to be like a hired position. I guess is a question for Chris Senior, and I'm wondering if the idea that this is a temporary position may present an opportunity for us to say, okay, if we want to reform this into something that is an appointed position or a hired position, not an elected one, then we would be looking for somebody who would not then be necessarily temporary. So could you just brief us a little bit about if we wanted to consider that, what the timeline would be, how that would work, especially because we're kind of this awkward, phase here.
So I did a little research and I can work further with our new council on this. So several other communities have looked at this, and actually Millis did a big study a couple of years ago. So I was able to read that study about the whole process. So what happens is the select board puts it on a warrant. Town meeting would then have to approve it going onto a ballot. You don't have to go to the state. And then the voters would vote on whether to make it an elected or appointed position. Or to keep it as an elected or to switch it to appointed. That's how it would work. So it has to go to the town meeting first, and then it would go to the ballot.
Yeah.
Could I just ask
Go
a
ahead.
follow-up to
Yeah,
that?
go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Barry.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in this case, let's say if we made it the board's intent to have that on the warrant and on a ballot, I guess it would then be potentially, we'd be offering somebody a position full-time, but with the caveat that if the town votes against it, they would then kind of be fired. So it would be, you know, a pseudo temporary, pseudo not temporary type of hire.
That's
And-
fair.
Yeah, and unless there was a special, I mean, right now, the recommendation later on the warrant here at the agenda tonight is to set a date of December 13th for a special town meeting. Then you probably wouldn't have the election until the spring anyway, until the regular election.
Right.
In case you'd have two, someone have to be running for office at the same time as you're running to potentially make the office appointed. Let's just schedule a special election, which is pricey.
But we wouldn't necessarily have anybody running for it. Is that, if we pass the warrant article and
well, yeah, it gets complicated.
The timing
Okay,
is tough, I think, with when our town election is and then when this town meeting would be. I will say,
Okay.
I do know there's interest in people running for it, but this interim time we have is really the tough spot that we're in. I think it's forcing us in a tough spot. And I have very mixed feelings about whether we should take this away from the people in terms of it being an elected position. I'm torn about it. I see the advantages, Corey, and I'm also skeptical if that would be a good long-term choice. I don't know. Diane and then Jean, you both had your hands up.
Sorry. I actually have a couple of conversations with people outside of town one is a town clerk who's leaving their job. So,
Ooh, okay.
but so just in terms of what are the options for somebody that might be interested in this? Is it a full-time town hall hours position? Could it be a 3-day-a-week position? You know, is there some flexibility in terms of the actual interim post?
The short answer, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say the short answer is yes. I mean, look, we, we prefer full-time. That said, we need somebody who knows what they're doing and we can make the office work. So yes, the answer is yes. We will be as flexible as reasonable to make this work.
Make the sell, Diane.
Stay tuned.
Jean.
Well, first, thank you, Miriam, for your efforts to find an interim person. I think that, it strikes me that if there was an internal candidate, we probably could work with them in terms of like a detail, which is typically what you do in the government when you want to like try out a new position, but return to your old position after X time. And you still have, all the benefits of your old position without fearing, losing that job. It strikes me that could be something that can be worked out. In terms of if we cannot find anyone, my question was about a special election, and you can probably tell where my mind is at in terms of retaining the power of the town clerk and the people. And so what would a special election entail, and what's the typical price tag associated there?
Yes, a special election could be called. We'd have to talk to council about the logistics of doing what it would cost. I don't know, but that is most certainly an option. Would be to call a special election sometime this fall, I guess. Again, we'd have to consult with council, but that is absolutely a process.
I think it's valid. I think we were hoping to get applicants so we wouldn't have to worry about spending money on a special election, but it is something maybe we should consider, Jean. If we don't get applicants, maybe by the next meeting, that is something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Carol thought she was done running elections. No.
One last one.
Diane.
Just to add that, one of the things we've talked about, and I think it was smart for us to kind of stake this in the ground, which is we would prefer to have somebody from out of town and not somebody who might be a candidate, because that would generally prejudice an election, but in the sense that any incumbent has that kind of advantage. So, it's just something I think we should talk about, at the next point at which we need to make a decision as to if there are people that have expressed interest in the position from town and running for it. you know, we do have the authority to make that interim appointment. So
Yeah.
just something for consideration.
Remind me, Chris and Miriam, has Carol given us her last date yet, or is that still in flux?
Well, she did give us a date informally, but she has not passed in her papers yet. She is really concerned about just leaving without a transition. So I believe that, you know, we have until probably the end of October with some level of participation with her making that transition to someone else.
Okay, that helps. That helps. It sounds like these are further discussions we need to have, but maybe let's hold off for our next meeting and see where we're at. And then, I mean, we're going to get to a point where we do have to pull the trigger and make a decision, but it seems like we still have a little bit of a grace period to try to find the person we're looking for. Does the board agree? All right, Diane, make your cell. Anyone else who knows anyone, please reach out to people, maybe some recently retired people, maybe people from other towns. I think it would be nice to find someone, but come September, we might have to talk about a special or appointing, or like Corey said, changing the scope of this position. Jean, did you have your hand up one more time?
I was just gonna say, if we're considering a special election of any sort, then I
Yeah.
mean, trying to get her to do the election and then transition that
Oh, I
person.
know.
I mean, that time is gonna be,
I mean, we can start reaching out to council just to float the idea and start getting feedback. I don't know if I'm ready or willing to call to spend that money tonight, but I might be in 2 weeks.
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
And again, it's just special elections are important, but it's a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of labor for one position. Granted, it's a very important position. All the elected positions are important, but I don't know. I don't know. Corey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my recommendation would be just put it on the agenda for like a broader discussion. I think that I'd like to unpack a little bit about the board's thoughts about, you know, whether, you know, this office is better served with a special election and the outcomes of that versus a reform. And we can unpack, you know, what's policy versus what's execution. I mean, what's public voice versus just a service. I mean, you know, I think there are things here that we, right now our clerk position is a little bit of a mixed, I don't want to say mixed bag, but it's a little bit of hybrid here.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we can unpack a little bit about what we think the clerk should be, maybe we can have a better sense of how we think that role, what kind of box that fits in better.
I agree. Let's get that. Let's have a bigger discussion on the 7th. Maybe we can get Carol to join too. All right. Thank you, Miriam. We'll see where we're at in a couple weeks on this issue. It's really important. All right. Moving on to board and committee appointments, beginning with Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA. Lee Darst, I believe, is in the audience. We can promote you. And this is for a reappointment for a 3-year associate position, I believe. Hi, Lee. Lee, you're in the room. Not sure if you can hear us or see us.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
That's you start. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, sorry.
There you are. We can see you now too. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for asking me.
Our
inviting
pleasure. So real quick, I know this is for a ZBA reappointment for a 3-year associate position, correct?
Yes.
And you're comfortable doing this? Just tell us briefly why you want to keep doing this job.
I find that I've been able to benefit. I'm hoping I'm adding something to my community by volunteering for the ZBA. I am a local attorney and I have real estate experience that I think I bring to the board. And I'm glad that I can, that I have the time and the ability to volunteer for this position.
Thank you. And thank you for volunteering. These jobs are really important, especially from our volunteers in town. Anyone on the board have any questions for Lee? Okay, they're an easy audience tonight, Lee. Do I have a motion for Lee Darst?
I'll move that we appoint Lee Darst, reappoint Lee Darst to a 3-year position on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And thank you, Lee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all.
We have
I
a
really
second?
have enjoyed it. Oops, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. We're glad you've enjoyed it. Jean, is that a second?
Yeah, I would second that.
All
As
right.
well as the thanks.
Roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Thank you, Lee. Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple die.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. It's unanimous. Congrats, Lee, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all your time, for all your service that you do for the town.
We appreciate that.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to registers of voters for Ron Goodwin. This also is a 3-year associate position. Let me see if Ron's here. I don't see Ron, but I know a lot of us know Ron.
He usually walks by my house. I'll put my head out, see if he's.
You
Get in here.
say hi to him next time. Any comments or opinions on this, or are we comfortable with a motion for Ron for reappointment?
This is a reappointment or an appointment? Just clarifying.
It's reappointment, right, Tracy?
Okay.
Yeah, reappointment for 3-year associate.
I'll
So
move
I'd
that
like
we,
to,
Go
I'd
ahead,
like
Jack.
to nominate Ron Goodwin for reappointment for his Register of Voters.
Okay,
second.
all right, we have a second roll call vote.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple die.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. Congrats, Ron. We appreciate your service. All right, moving on to our zoning working group. We have 2 things to do here. First, discuss and vote on an updated charge, and then an appointment. And Katie Dugan, I believe, is here just to give us a quick update on that. Hi, Katie.
Hey, guys.
So I know we've mentioned this briefly before, and we have the language. All of you should have had the zoning bylaw working group language in the packet, the change we're making. But Katie, just remind all of us why we're doing this.
Sure. So the zoning bylaw working group was set up last August. And at the request of several members, it was suggested that we reorganize annually and make recommendations annually. So that's part of the reason that we're having this discussion. The second is I had made the recommendation as chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee that we expand the formal charge from 1 member from Master Plan Implementation to 2. We already have in the charge 2 representatives from Planning Board, 1 from ZBA, 1 from Open Space, 1 from the Cohasset Select Board, and then our 2 ex officios. My recommendation was based on the fact that Cassie Malatesta, who is a citizen at large on Master Plan Implementation, had stepped up right after she went into that role last year and has been doing heavy lifting on the zoning bylaw working group. So my recommendation was to expand it so that she had a formal role on this committee. And to be honest, I think I said this to you guys last time, there's quite a bit of heavy lifting left to do. So moving from a committee of 6 to a committee of 7 plus 2 ex officio felt like a reasonable request given the amount of work that we still have ahead of us, including onboarding a consultant and hopefully with your support, a broader reorganization, recodification of the zoning bylaws. And so that was the request. I should note for you guys, and this was also discussed last year when we put in place the charge, and this is in the last 3 paragraphs of the charge itself, that all the members of the working group will be recommended based on their parent body committees, which is i.e. where they're being sent as liaisons. But more importantly, the zoning bylaw working group has no authority to vote or promulgate zoning changes. That's stated in the first sentence of the second to last paragraph. In addition, it says the working group will recommend to the parent body committees the actions necessary to implement any zoning bylaw changes before town meeting. So just to be clear, our working group is really there to assist the town in developing a set of recommendations that will then be made to the planning board, who has statutory authority over zoning bylaw changes, and then obviously the select board and town meeting. So our job is 100% recommendations. And so the thought process was having a member who had been so deep in the weeds and done a lot of great work as it relates to some of our residential zoning recommendations to have 7 members, not 6.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Corey, I saw your hand first, and then anyone else who has a question. Go ahead, Corey.
I don't think the revised ZBA working group charge made it to our packet. Does anyone else see it? Or was it emailed? Okay, so I mean, Katie, I fully support, I think what you're doing, and obviously the task that the select board has kind of made a priority for this year requires ZBA to be, really fully functional. So I'd be comfortable if you've got that change. If you could just share the screen with us so we could take a look at it, because I don't think it made it to our packet. But I also want to hear from my colleague, Mr. Creighton, because I know he's on that committee. So.
Hold on, we're trying to share the screen, but Jack, go ahead while we're trying to share the screen here.
Yeah, I'm fully, and I'm prepared to nominate, Casey. She's done an excellent job. She has a very good perspective. However, one of the things, and I've spoken to her a couple of times, is she has a major project in the town. So she wants everybody to be very clear that in anything that she does in this, it could even remotely impact her project or benefit her directly or indirectly. She would recuse herself, and she will send a letter to wherever that needs to be sent.
Thanks,
That being
Jack.
said,
Okay.
I do want to nominate her for the position.
Thank you, Jack. We have a motion, and just quick comment on that. I do believe as long as she's communicating with our state ethics commission and
Yes.
recusing herself from any votes that would be a conflict of interest, as long as
Yep.
that's happening, which I trust they will be, I would be okay with it as well.
Yeah, and she wants everybody to know that she's very much aware of that, and she intends to do that.
Okay. And Katie, I assume you agree. So
I do agree. And just to be clear, the priorities that we set for ourselves in terms of goals, at least initially when we started working, were residential zoning, harbor, and housing options. And so those are the 3 that we've been working on. Cassie's conflict, as it were, is related to village business, the village business district directly. And so she's been very clear that she would recuse herself. And so, again, I'd look to guidance from the board, but if it's a matter of her putting in writing that statement, and then obviously having a further discussion with the State Ethics Commission, she's happy to do that.
Yeah, we went over that, and it's in her position, or in any elected position who has even the appearance, and the law does say potential appearance of, and she doesn't.
Yeah.
But because one of the reasons why she'll be so good on this and has done such good work for the town is she recognized that right away. And I think she just wants everybody in town to know that she recognizes that.
And thank you, Jack and Katie, for saying that. And again, we have really talented volunteers in town that also have their own careers. And I think a lot of our volunteers are cognizant of that. So it's a really important point just generally, but I do think Cassie is absolutely qualified and has put in so much work on this already for the town. I know Jack's made a motion for her. I think we probably have to have 2 separate motions here, one for Cassie and one for updating the charge that you all should be able to see on the screen. Corey, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say regarding Cassie, I do think there are certain very clear advantages to having someone who is a member of a resident of our community and a stakeholder in at least sections of this here. One thing the economic task force, identified as a problem is out of town ownership for a lot of buildings. So I do think when we have this opportunity to partner with people who do own buildings downtown and live here, I think those are things to explore and take advantage of. So I'd like to, if Jack made the motion, I would happily second the appointment of Cassie to.
Just hold on, Diane.
We probably can't because we haven't changed the
Hold
thing.
on. So we're still in discussion, but hold on, Diane, go
apologize.
ahead and then we can. do a vote.
Yeah, just a point of order. I wanted to actually move the amended language and updated charge for the Master Plan Implementation Committee Zoning Bylaw Working Group as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. And then Jack, you can remake your motion. Okay. All right, vote on this for updating the charge. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple Dot.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. Okay, Jack, you can make your motion
Hey.
again.
I'd like to nominate Cassie Malatesta to the zoning working group vote. Zoning,
You know what you mean.
you know what I mean.
The zoning working group is a voting member. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple Dot.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. Congrats to Cassie and thank you, Katie, for getting that done.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right, moving on to Concom, Conservation Commission appointments. Very important. We have a few of these to do tonight. I will make a note, though, that Jay Pimpari called me earlier. He would prefer for us to hold his appointment for the following meeting that we have because he's away in Maine and wouldn't be able to get sworn in time for the upcoming meeting. So just for protocol and speaking to our lawyers, we need to hold off on that, if that's okay with everyone. In terms of the other full members and associate members, so the slate that I would like to propose and based on the packet is for full members, Tom Bell, Chris McFarland, and Will Ashton. And then as an associate member, Chris McIntyre. Diane, yeah.
So moved.
Hold
I
on.
just have a question about the terms because there was one resignation, so one must be to fill an unexpired term. That was probably 1 or 2 years. Just clarification on that.
That is a very good question.
The resignation came at the end of the term, so it's a full regular 3-year term.
Oh, okay, that was, all right, that makes sense why I had all full terms.
And,
and parts. Okay.
and just for clarification, so the full members, Tom, Chris, Will.
They're both
are
Chris
all-
M's. So Chris, yeah, Chris McFarland for, yeah,
Tom Bell and Will Ashton are all full members for 3-year terms. And then the associate terms, if I remember correctly, are 1-year terms.
Yes.
I believe
Okay.
so, yeah. So Chris McIntyre would be the associate nominee. Thanks for clarifying, Diane.
So the associate is moving into the full member and then the new
Yeah.
applicant is becoming an associate. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Carrie, do you mind just
Although-
unpacking that, explaining like I'm 5 here, just each person and the slot you want them and where they're coming
Yes.
from, just, I didn't follow, totally on me.
So the totally new appointee is Will Ashton. He's brand new, which congrats, Will Ashton. We can't wait to have you. So Will Ashton is brand new. Tom Bell and Chris McFarland are being reappointed. Tom Bell's the current associate and would be moving up to full. And then Chris McIntyre would be going into the associate position.
Is Mr. McIntyre brand new as well?
Yeah.
He hasn't served on this board
Yeah.
before. Okay,
No,
all
yeah,
right,
no, he's new. He's new. So the two new people, Will Ashton and Chris McIntyre are both new.
okay. Yeah, I think a new person in the associate position is
Yep. And then Jay Pimpari would also be getting nominated for a reappointment for next meeting. Yeah, Diane.
And again, just clarification that Jay's interest is in a full 3-year term, so there remains that slot, which means there would
Yes.
be one more associate 1-year position that
Correct.
we would still be
Correct.
seeking applications for.
Yes, so shout out to anyone who knows anyone else who might be interested in Concom. They do still need someone, so that is a really important position. There's a lot going on there, as we know, so try to do some recruiting. While you're doing town clerk recruiting, recruit for Concom too. But yes, exactly, Diane. Yeah, sorry, this is confusing. It's a lot of appointments for a small committee, which they need. So again, with permission, I would like for us to hold off on Jay Pimpari based on his request. And then reappointing Tom Bell and Chris McFarland, and then Will Ashton, a brand new full member, and Chris McIntyre, a brand new associate member. Corey.
So
you-
moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right, congrats to those Concom appointees, and we will re-put that on the agenda for the following week as well. Maybe we'll have another new applicant too. All right, in terms of,
Madam Chairman, could I?
yeah, go
make
ahead.
One
Yeah.
comment for the public about conservation.
Sure.
For people who might be interested, understand that that the Conservation Commission is regulatory. This means that you read the laws that the town has passed and you make sure, or you judge on the basis of what the law is. It's not a particular advocacy position one way or the other. You don't have to be a wetland scientist. All you have to do is read a very straightforward law and say, does it comply or doesn't it? And it's a great thing to see how government actually works. And for those people who are interested in transparency and fairness, I urge you to join the Concom. It's a great place to apply that type of ethic, if you will.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope we can get another appointee applied very soon for that.
Yeah.
All right. Wait, sorry, hold on. Yeah, no, we. All right, so for the master plan implementation committee, we actually do not need to do that anymore. I double checked and we actually did that vote on August 4th, 2020, I believe. We also are still waiting to fill a couple more liaison positions for MPIC, but we don't have those yet. So if you're all okay with holding off on that one. Yes, Jean.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just wondering if it made brief sense for Jack to briefly describe the sort of skill set required for COMCOM in case there's someone is listening from my conversations with folks on COMCOM, given the importance of having the full board there, because there's many residents that also wait to make sure that they can get their projects done, and it's important to have those quorums. So it really is an important commission that is also critical to residents who are awaiting decisions. And so, Jack, I don't know if you want to weigh in. I know, for example, geologists, hydrologists, environmental engineers, there's probably others based on your experience that, to the extent people know people, might be good fits.
In addition to being a good reader, like you said, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, if somebody is already working as a hydrologist, a geologist, or whatever, they will have a working knowledge. What I wanted people to understand is that working knowledge is important, but we have a new conservation agent who will provide that background. And the actual, what we're really applying is the Cohasset Wetlands Protection Act, which is pretty simple and straightforward. It was written by Cohasset conservation members. So I think the point is that it's helpful if you have that information. If you do have that, wonderful. It's a good way to give your expertise back to the town. But if you don't have it, you shouldn't be intimidated that you shouldn't do it, because a lot of what you're doing is just basic transparency and good judgment to make sure everybody gets treated equally in the town. So I guess to Jean's point, if you have that expertise, it's great. You can add an awful lot. And anybody who wants to call me, because I was chair for a number of years, on there for more than a number of years. It's very satisfying. There is some work involved, but it's the kind of work where you've really made a difference. So it's satisfying. So you should really give it a try and give me a call. I'd be glad to talk you into it. I mean, I would be glad to show you the delights of serving a great town of
Are you
Cohasset.
gonna give us your numbers too, Jack? I'm kidding. Okay, Diane, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to exclamation point what Jack just said. I mean, this, all of our, especially our hearing boards, it is like a
Yeah.
jury of your peers. So, you know, what's required is really an interest and a commitment to showing up. And sometimes it's not easy, but it's, you know, like anything any of us do, it's great to serve the community. So that's all.
Yeah, amen to all of that. Thank you all for that. Hopefully we can get it to be a full committee in the next couple of weeks. So everyone work your magic on recruiting people. All right. Like I was saying, we don't need to do MPIC for tonight. We do have Community Preservation Committee, our Housing Authority rep, Virginia Ginny Najmi is our last appointment for tonight. I don't think she's joining us, but I know a lot of people know her as well. Any questions or comments on this position? Yeah, Diane.
Didn't we do this last time?
Yeah.
Or am I?
No, we appointed for Housing Authority, but not for CPC rep.
Got it. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. I'm
Yeah.
like,
No, you're right. We did. You're not crazy. So this is just
that's not that's not
not
the
in
measure.
terms of this topic, right?
Thank you.
So what we're giving, this is for CPC to have their Housing Authority rep. Do we have a motion?
So move that we appoint Virginia Najmi to, as the Housing Authority CPC rep.
Jean, did you have a hand up?
I was just wondering if this was on the agenda.
It's not.
Or
The
Right.
agenda, I believe, was amended to add this to it based on Taffy asking us to,
Okay.
but I'm not
Only thing
entirely
I-
sure what time it was added. Do we maybe want to make a motion to be safe to officially add it to the agenda?
You
I'm
can't
just-
officially add it to the agenda and then vote on it.
Oh, can't.
I'm trying to, the agenda I had up had this on here. I'm not entirely sure when it got.
So,
I can try to check.
yeah,
Hold on. I'm trying to check.
It is on the public one. It wasn't in the one in our packets. So there's just a divergent there. So publicly, it's in here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm looking at the one I was given. So if it's in the public one, I think
It is.
We're
yeah,
okay.
Yep.
I do think it was the packet was resent a second time too. If all you saw the emails, I think probably the first one, it might not have been in, Gene, and the second one it was in, but as long as it was on the public one, I do think we can
Yeah,
vote on.
okay. I see it on the public one.
Diane?
Yeah, no, just to be safe, I think just
No, I
for the
appreciate it.
purposes internally, we should just make a motion that we add to, you know, formally acknowledge that on the public agenda is the appointment of the Housing Authority rep to CPC. So if somebody could second that, I'm moving it.
Second.
We have a second roll call vote. Jack?
Discussion.
Yes, discussion.
I think that this sets, if the select board, we are sent this and it is not on there, I mean, I think we would want, unless there's a 48-hour rule, I think we would want, because we're the ones who vote, to know, and not necessarily on this is relatively minor, but I would not like to see the precedent where we are sent an agenda to rely upon and then find something voted on at the meeting that we may not like, or we may have wanted to get further information or during that 48 hours. So I just
No,
think
that's,
it's
I think that's fair, Jack, and I think it was in that weird time frame between sending the first agenda out to the board while still having time to get it posted to the public for 48 hours. So it is within that gray area where it was still on the public agenda, but I agree with you. We can hold off on this if we want. But I think that, yeah, Diane, and then Corey.
Yeah, our obligation is to the public, and it is publicly posted that this is on the agenda that has been publicly posted. I just double checked the website, so I'm comfortable going forward, assuming we vote affirmatively to move this item forward.
Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about a precedent set because we as a committee would have to vote every time this happens. So I think
Right.
it's up to our judgment whether or not it's appropriate or not. And I think in this instance, it's clearly appropriate because this is something that was publicly posted. It's also something that is it's not a big policy change. So I'm comfortable moving forward with.
All right, any more discussion? We have a motion and a second on. We're voting to be able to vote on this, to clarify.
So
All right.
let me clarify. What we're saying is that we believe that even if it isn't sent to the individual, even if an erroneous agenda, which was happened, was sent to the select board. Now, I just got, my first one did not go through and a couple of times, and I actually got this finally after 3 or 4 attempts at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So what we're saying is that so I effectively didn't have any notice. So you're saying that it can be at the discretion of the board to add things on the agenda that were not sent to the board members. That's what we're voting on.
Point of order. I don't really like the idea of rephrasing what we're saying here. So,
Yeah, that's not
so
the-
let's, that's not what we're doing. I think we're affirming that the vote,
It was
as I understand it, is affirming that the public posted agenda has this item and that we as a board are comfortable with that as the understanding that we can move forward with this appointment. And that's all we're
Right,
saying.
it's not a point of order. It's not a point of order. You're just saying that and I'm putting forth what I believe is an interpretation of what could happen. So
Okay,
anyway, that's my position.
The CPC, it was posted on the public agenda.
I
and then
know.
We sent to the board
know.
within the allotted time frame. So there's
I'd like to
no-
move the question.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
vote on this. Roll call, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, nay.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, I. All right, we now can entertain a motion to appoint Virginia Najmi as Housing Authority Rep to CPC.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
we have a second. A roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, I abstain because I don't think it's properly to be voted on.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, I. All right, thank you, Virginia, for your service with that, and we'll let CPC know. All right, moving
And
on.
thank you. And Virginia, I just want to say, Virginia, I think you do a great job. So it's not personal, at all. You do a good job and thank you.
Moving on to the alternative energy update. We have our chair, Tanya Boldell, here. Hi, Tanya. Welcome. We're excited. to
Hi,
hear-
Carrie. I'm
Thanks for
excited to
being
be here.
All
Thank
right.
you for having us.
No, we always like hearing what is up with AEC and what you all are working on.
Good. So I've got some slides just to give you a quick update of where we stand on things. And the main part of the conversation is going to be about whether or not you'd like us to pursue a BRIC grant, a Building Resiliency in the Communities grant. It would be an ideal opportunity for us to get funding from the federal government as well as others to be able to pursue reliability and resiliency for the town. I don't know if you're ready for a motion, but I give you some wording for at some point and hopefully the near future for us to decide whether or not you want to move forward. And if we're going to move forward, I think it'd be best to have an ad hoc grant committee because this is potentially a big one.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if we were planning on voting on anything tonight, but we can discuss that after your presentation. So why don't we start with the update and then we'll go from there on further steps.
Right. And if the host could give me screen sharing capability.
Should be coming.
All right. Great. Let me go to slideshow. Anybody see this?
Yep, we got it.
All right, very good. So we're calling this our second quarterly report because we are under our charter to do quarterly reports. And I think depending, you may be hearing quite a bit from us going forward for the rest of the year and you'll see why. But we're providing you an update on the Alternative Energy Committee activities in the first half of 2021, explaining some of the things that have stalled us outside of our control. And I will say very frustrating. I'm sure you'll feel the same way, which does give some more support to potentially pursuing the FEMA BRIC grant opportunity. This request permission to proceed with the BRIC grant obviously doesn't have to be voted on tonight, but sooner rather than later would be a good thing if you agree that we should explore this. But it is fair to say the AEC is now very focused on action and capital investment grants to help the town with our efforts. And so that is squarely within our charter, where we investigate and identify alternative energy resources and opportunities for efficiency and resiliency and other energy-based policies that benefit the town and its citizens. One thing also we have 2 open spots right now. I have asked Adam and Tyler to continue to serve until replaced. Adam had a 1-year term and he is looking to be involved in other parts of the town. And that would be a 3-year term. And then there's an open 1-year term remaining on Tyler Thibault's position. He would like to continue to work with us, but did not want to be involved as a board member just because of work commitments and all the storms that are happening. As you know, Tyler's with Eversource. So he wants to continue working with us, but just felt he couldn't do that as a committee member.
Yep.
As soon as you can, that would be great. Also, we did look at the rules about this because we were chartered as a 7-member committee. Even if we have 2 seats empty, we still have to have 4 people for a quorum. So it's just becoming more difficult than we needed. Okay, quick update on existing initiatives. We're pursuing $200,000 as a green community, and that would help the Cohasset Middle High School to basically help to moderate its temperature controls. And mainly to make sure that the air conditioning is not fighting against the heat. And so this is something that other towns have gotten money for. It's something we're requesting, and we have not yet reached our cap. So we're looking to pursue that. But we are approaching almost $1 million in Green Communities funding. The solar arrays, as you know, we put out an RFP last year. We had great response. We chose Amoresco, Palmer Capital, and Select with your permission. We've been continuing to pursue development of different sites to make final decisions, and we've hit a snag. National Grid, so Select went forward with the school roofs. Part of this was an exercise to see, could we get them replaced early? What would be required? We are standing in the queue for the school roofs. And as part of that, we did receive an interconnection cost estimate from National Grid. And they basically allocated $500,000 in common cost at the Norwell substation to Cohasset. So in order to put a 500 kilowatt, which is a tiny solar energy array on the school roofs, we would have to not just connect to Sawyer Street and pay for that, we would also have to pay for $500,000 in common costs at the Norwell substation. This is $1,000 per kilowatt. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We have asked them for clarification and the basis for this. They haven't gotten back to us on this, but that this common cost basically kills any project we might want to put in the town for solar energy, even if it has a battery, just because of the way they study it and the way they allocate costs. It's beyond disappointing, but I think we might have a way around this. The other thing is once we get their response about what the basis for these costs are, we can decide what we want to do in response to their response. Electric buses, as you know, our lease is coming up. So the Alternative Energy Committee has been looking at the options. We've had 2 different presentations from Highland Electric, who provides buses at the same price as what is budgeted for non-electric buses. And there's different ways that they can keep that same price, including longer term commitments. We've also heard from the town of Concord, who implemented electric buses with a grant. So there are different purchase lease models. We're looking at the costs. It most likely, if we were to purchase or lease the buses for a short term, would be an incremental cost. But that may be covered by federal and state grants. We also, as part of this, have a study underway to look at being able to use electric buses as mobile storage facilities that can be taken around town to help people or buildings that need to be charged in case backup generators go down. And then community choice. We are still waiting for the DPU approval. This has been paused from where we hoped to be last year. We just can't move until they approve our plan. We're not the only town who's been stuck in this morass. And it may be that what's happening is the Massachusetts Attorney General has looked at getting rid of retail choice in Massachusetts. And there's reasons for this, but there's also legislators who are looking to get rid of retail choice. And given that community choice is basically retail choice, there may be an inconsistency with desired outcome versus these plans that's forced them to put everything on hold. This is just a supposition and expressed to keep you up to date on what's happening on the state level. But hopefully this will get resolved soon, or we will be told it's not a go, at which point we can stop reporting to you on this. Our microgrid grant study, we wrote a grant study application last April 2020, 2 Aprils ago in 2020. We won 2 study grants for $75,000 each. Those are underway looking at the DPW transfer station where we have our existing solar energy array and the Elm Street microgrid project, which is fire, police, and senior housing. It would provide green alternatives in the form of, it's assessing renewable alternatives in the form of solar and batteries for both of those locations. And we're expecting that report in the next couple weeks. And that would be good because it could serve as a basis for a federal BRIC grant if that's what we chose to proceed with. And so that's all I have on our updates of our normal initiatives before I jump into the FEMA BRIC grant opportunity. Are there any questions?
Any questions so far? All right, go on into BRIC, Tanya.
All right. So let me tell you, resiliency, hazards, hazard mitigation, microgrids, these are all things that the government has decided to throw money at. And as one of our jobs is to help the town figure out where that money is and get it, this is a great opportunity for us. As you know, in 2015, Steve Girardi and I first went around town and mapped up what a downtown microgrid would look like. Last year, the Alternative Energy Committee put together a conceptual framework, 4 phases, which we'll touch upon on how we would look at a microgrid for the town. The point of a microgrid is to give us power when we normally not get power, and to do it in a way so that it pays for itself, or most of it. So that's reliability and resiliency that pays for itself. It becomes even easier if you have the federal government looking to fund 75% of your project. So there is $1 billion, that's not a mistake, $1 billion that FEMA has been funded to pursue reliability and resiliency at the municipal level through BRIC grants. BRIC stands for Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. Very clearly in this are the microgrids, and that's explicitly on a page on the BRIC site. The town's MVP study identified energy supply as a critical issue for Cohasset that needs to be mitigated for purposes of hazard mitigation. It lays a foundation for us to pursue a solution. We've spoken many times with you about what a microgrid can do for reliability and resiliency. And on August 9th, 2021, so very recently, FEMA issued its notice of funding opportunity. And we've been tracking this. We've talked to them to try to understand what they're looking to fund. And so one of the things that we'd like you to discuss, and the permission doesn't have to happen today, is do you want us to pursue this? I would say of all of the money, the billions granted, we would be looking at the national competition for mitigation projects. There's 919 million plus allocated to that. It's a 75% federal contribution. The other 25% can come from anywhere as long as it's not federal. And so, for example, we could get state funding. And we've talked to a couple of agencies who were very interested in our project and providing that funding and providing technical support. We could get funding from industry players who would like to study a demonstration project if that's what we were to pursue. And there's a $50 million cap per sub application. So we have a 4-stage process. If we wanted to do it 4 sub applications, we could do that. But given our size, I would not expect our total request to be more than this cap. In fact, I'd expect it maybe to be 20 to 30 million. But part of it depends on what we're going to do, how extensive that is going to be. We have been told by FEMA, don't come to us and ask for us to fund a battery. They're sort of done with that. They want something big, they want something bold. And we are a town that needs something big and something bold, as you know, because of how poorly our energy supply, how poor it is. So the cost sharing, I feel confident we could probably get the bulk of that 25% non-federal cost share from others. And of course, before we submitted any grant, we would make sure we understood what the scope of the proposal is, what the town's potential out-of-pocket cost is, and make sure that there's agreement from the parties involved that we should pursue it. This little page from on the left, microgrids are eligible projects for mitigation grants. This is FEMA on their FEMA website for BRIC. They are hot and heavy on microgrids, and they want the microgrids. On the left, or I'm sorry, that's on the left. On the right, we're going to delve a little bit onto the top. This is our 4-stage framework that we developed. The public projects, the demo phase 1 are the 2 projects we talked about just a few minutes ago that we're getting a grant study completed shortly on. We could look at other sites like the schools, Osgood and Deer Hill, to create a microgrid. And that's interesting because it's emergency response center. So we could go under a phase 2 request for not just the 2 phase 1 projects, but even additional projects that we identify. Phase 3, we'll talk about, starts to require National Grid to be heavily committed because it requires use of their franchise service territory rights. And then phase 4 would be able to just island the town off completely so that when the problem is upstream in Norwell and Wampatuck Park, we can still have power and do our work and fire up our cars and anything else that we want to do with our electricity. So perhaps the most important is I don't see that there's anything to lose. The BRIC grant writing process itself would allow us to gain knowledge. It would establish relationships with key players in this marketplace who could help us if we ultimately went down a municipalization path. Would give us insight into what we might want to invest in if we did a different approach versus a microgrid. And some of the key questions for us that this would answer is a microgrid a way to solve our power supply problems? I will tell you the standard answer from National Grid, and they've been very helpful and we've had a great relationship with them, is vegetation management. We got to cut the trees. The trees are causing these lines to go down. We got to cut the trees. We all know that's not the issue. What's physically required to isolate and operate a community-wide microgrid? How much generation do we as a town require to meet our critical energy needs or to meet all of our needs? Can we use residential backup generator? There's 271 houses in town that have backup generation. It tells you the scope of the problem we have, and the town itself has 13. Can we use those as a virtual power plant so that we don't have to build as much batteries and solar? And can solar and batteries even can it suffice, or do we need another type of generation solution? And then who benefits and what would, not us, because most of this is being paid for by the federal government and others, but what would a microgrid tariff look like for Massachusetts? Those are key questions I think we need to answer as a town anyway. So pursuing this grant allows us to have a focused purpose in being able to answer those questions up front. And then potentially, if we are awarded money to pursue it, allows us to pursue the this path as reliability and resiliency. The list of logos on the left are all of the folks that we've talked to who are very excited. MAPC, Mass CEC have talked about state money that could help us. National Grid, we had a great conversation with them today. They cannot commit right now because they have to run everything up through their flagpole, but they are interested in helping and figuring out how to help and how to work with us. And Chris Senior did a very good job with the ask, which was, you got to tell us, can you walk with us on this? Can you work with us on this? And then there are others who provide some of the more technical capability. A lot of these discussions have been not necessarily in terms of the BRIC grant, but in terms of some of the other initiatives we've been doing. As I said, we could do anything from phase 1, which are those 2 projects that the study is going to be completed on shortly, all the way up to phase 4, which is being able to island off the grid and self-supply. Obviously, phase 4 is the most resilient, but there's also a bigger commitment. And what that costs, each of these phases, what they cost would be part of the process. But most certainly National Grid has to work with us on all of these, but particularly on phase 3 and 4, because it requires crossing public rights of way. And they're very clear that they're going to maintain their service territory rights. And this is just an illustration of the difference. Phase 1 is just these 2 projects. So the bookends of what a microgrid could look like. Phase 4, with 3 switches, we could island off the entire town. But of course, we need to have generation in the community, and it would have to be green because the BRIC grant is not about supporting fossil fuel generation, which we already as a town have lots of, unless it's to use it in a very clever way. Timeline, it's the rest of the year. So I think something for you to discuss. Do you want to create an ad hoc BRIC grant readiness assessment board committee? It's a board committee. It'd be established by you, but we like it because it's called BRIC Grab for short. Then we'd need assigned committee members. We'd draft and outline the proposal. We would bring it to you by October 15th, and you could say yay or nay. We're not interested. We'd have some rough numbers. If you say yay, then we put forward an expression of interest by November 1st. We need that before we can submit a proposal. We create a more detailed plan with our partners. That proposed approach would be approved by the different committees in the town. It may include the schools, getting new school roofs so that we can put on the solar, getting electric buses paid for by this grant. So there's a lot of capital that the town might spend that we could get partially funded, funds that we wouldn't normally get. And then if everybody thinks this is a good idea, we draft the proposal and we submit by January 28th. So again, what the town would be on the hook for, as far as the cost sharing is concerned, will be determined through the process. It depends on a lot of things that we just can't give you answers for right now. One of which is how far does National Grid want to go? The other is how much does the state want to contribute? Another is how much do we think we can get from the marketplace? Because we could get at least $500,000 from capacity payments alone. And then there's a lot of other factors that go into that calculation and how far we want to go. So I think this is where discussion should occur, but whether it's an ad hoc board committee or you want to have the alternative energy committee pursue it for this upfront part or whatever, we, as you know, are a committee that can't do anything without your approval and authority given to us. So we open it for conversation.
Thank you, Tanya. This is a lot of great stuff here and quite a big difference between stage 1 and stage 4. So thank you for summarizing all of this. I feel like we have a lot to talk about. Diane, I saw your hand first, then Corey, then Jean.
Yeah, I'm going to do things backwards. I have a bazillion questions, which I wrote down. So I think probably what I'd like to recommend is that we have an actual agenda item discussion where we bring all of our questions. We can kind of take all of this presentation and, distill it and figure out what we want to come prepared to ask. But a couple of just really quick questions. The 2 resiliency study grants that are in process right now, the Elm Street, the DPW, that are $75,000 each, are whatever the results of those studies going to be ready, or when are they going to be ready, and might they be the premise upon which we build this particular grant request?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is yes, they should be completed in the next few weeks.
Okay.
And based on that, that's basically a phase 1. It plots out phase 1 on a technical basis, and then we can, when I just asked for phase 1, we have those study grants and those studies to be able to serve as a basis for this.
Okay, and then just one other quick question before I shut up, which is I do think, Chris, that we should have this discussion somewhat in the context of ARPA funding. And whether some of that ARPA funding, which wouldn't require a match, might be able to be spent on some of the resiliency projects that are determined to be a priority by the town. So I think it's just something to think about, whether there's other funds such that we don't have to put forward a massive grant application and then set up a system to manage it. Having another federal government grant due tomorrow, it's not as simple as it should be.
Right. Yeah, I was questioning ARPA funding and how it relates to Diane. And again, we don't have all the answers yet, but it's a very good point because they're obviously intertwined. Corey, then Jean.
Yeah, I love the acronym BRIC grab. And I learned the other day that an acronym by definition has to be pronounceable. Otherwise, it's just an abbreviation. I didn't actually know that. So proper acronym there. I just, Dan, I think your point about we should discuss this because the agenda item does say just update. I think that's great. And I'll just prime a little bit of just like one of the things I get asked. I don't know if you guys get asked, but often it's just like, hey, what are we doing about our power infrastructure here? And typically we go, that's out of our hands. That's state statute. We can't do anything about it. This is something we can do. I mean, this is like we can tell our community we are doing something, and this is we are rethinking our infrastructure. We are rethinking our relationship with National Grid. We are rethinking how we make power. We are rethinking how we, we're at the forefront of climate change here. We're on the water. We're getting hit by hurricanes. I mean, this impacts us. We also have the town layout to do this big, bold stuff. And we also have talent, which is not, not everyone has, people like Tanya guiding these kind of efforts. So, I think of this as like, hey, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to shoot for the moon, really make an impact, get some attention, be a standard for other people to look at us and say, wow, this is a way we can go forward. So I'm excited by the idea of really being visionary here. That's it. Thank you.
No, I echo that, especially that everyone was just expecting to lose power this past weekend. And then we had to be surprised that we didn't. Shows that this is much needed psychologically and physically in our town. It's a huge issue. And you're right. All of us get asked about it individually. So I think it's great, Tanya. I do think we need to discuss it and possibly vote on it on the 7th if you're free. Jean, you had your hand up next.
So I echo, notwithstanding my muted nature, Corey's enthusiasm for the project. And I do have a lot of specific questions, but I will table them for the 7th, also being mindful of time.
Yeah.
And I think to just sort of forecast some of the questions that I'm probably going to have, to the extent it's helpful, Tanya, for you to know about them ahead of time, includes, do we need to have a specific town commitment shown in the grant? Because we're looking at a December town meeting. And so just from a timeline standpoint, I'm wondering, do we need to show who, the federal government, that we're willing to do X amount? Because, by my math, it could be up to 5 million, which is a lot of money. And that's a very substantial discussion as you know. And so I do think that in addition to having the bigger discussion about sort of whether it makes sense, it probably also makes sense to have this in the context of like community outreach and including people in the discussion and socializing the idea and making sure that we can let people know about this as well. And, talking about the best ways that we can help you, Tanya, do that, because everyone knows that power is an issue, climate change is an issue, resiliency is an issue. I do wonder whether ARPA funds can in fact be used to make up that 20%, given that there's a restriction on non-federal money and ARPA is federal. And so I think that the money part, it always comes down to the money, unfortunately, and many times, and this is probably going to be one of those times. So that's one of my questions about the money. And then another question I have too is about National Grid. If we take all this work, if we move in this direction on the premise of hitting, let's say, phase 4, but we require the cooperation of National Grid in phase 3, given what's happening right now with the connection costs, I was hoping to just sort of talk that through more next time to understand the ups and downs there, because it strikes me there could be some ups and downs.
Yeah, those are great questions, Jean. And this is a lot for us to chew on, I think, and I'm going to get a lot more questions too by our next meeting as well. Jack?
Yeah, I think Tanya's, as usual, done a good job of grabbing grants and getting money to fund all this stuff. And I support a lot of the resiliency and making things right. However, I think we have to be very careful that we don't inadvertently go down the road where we saddle our residents with increasingly high, electric bills and whatever, and which can be irreversible. So I think this makes a lot of sense to get these things and do a lot of things together. But we, as representing our people in Cohasset, should be very careful and quite honestly look a little cynically at some of these proposals. One of the in my world, we're always wary of people who hide behind high-minded solutions when there's some pretty venial things around there and potentially behind it. And we need to be careful as the guardians of our citizens that we don't do there. And by the way, I think Tanya's a very good person to protect us from that. So thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Jack. Because I was going to say, even if it's a $20 million project, I would never come to this town and ask for $5 million unless it's an upfront $5 million loan that's an enterprise fund that can be refunded back from clear revenue streams, benefits to the town, and et cetera. So,
and I trust you. I trust you,
I know.
even though I've seen the way you behave on the sailing race course.
Okay,
That's another
shots fired.
story.
No personal comments are allowed.
I'm sorry, out of
Is
order.
my
out of order.
understanding.
Out of order, out of order.
Out of order.
All right, so it sounds like we're all very excited about this. Tanya, I think you did what you needed to do tonight, which was get our attention and get us excited. And I think that this is a really great chance for us to chew on questions that we have and maybe some more in-depth discussion points for our next meeting, and then can really think about voting on it. So if that's okay with you, if you're free on the 7th, we would love to put that on the agenda.
That is great. And I am free on the 7th, and I appreciate your promptness on this. And obviously, if there are any questions, feel free to attend actually, I don't think we'll have an AAC meeting before then, but we will definitely have other conversations with potential partners on this to start to reach out what the different options are.
And I do think that you sent out your presentation that you just presented to all of us, right? I think I saw an email from you.
Correct.
Okay.
That was sent out. Yes.
So everyone has her presentation to go look at it again. Wonderful. All right. Thank you,
Thank you so
Tanya.
much.
That was great.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Very exciting stuff there. All right, moving on to a stop sign on Howard Gleason and possibly approving that, I believe. Chris and Chief Quigley, give us an update on this. The info should be in the packet.
I'm back. Chris, you want to go or?
So the request came in from residents funneled through two members of the board, Diane and Jean, and sent it back to the police. They took a look at it. And it turns out actually that one of the stop signs at Howard Gleason has been permitted for a long time. It just had been taken down at some point, and so it's back up. So one is up. Another one at Stockbridge doesn't appear. I didn't see it, Bill, on the list anywhere. But that is something that would be valuable to have, I think, according to the report. But let Bill give his report. So the one at Howard Gleason doesn't have to be reauthorized. It's already been authorized and it's back up. So there's a stop sign there now. The one at Stockbridge is something you can talk about, and then Bill will talk more about the report.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that if you're not familiar with the area, this is almost like a three-way intersection. And the sign, we think the sign on Howard Gleason was hit, probably taken down. There's actually no pavement marking there either. So DPW painted the stop line on the road. They reinstalled the sign, and that is supported by the traffic bylaws. That sign, it is an existing sign. So that is back in place in good shape. The area could stand an update to signage, noting that it's a shot curve or a dangerous curve. I'd leave that wording up to DPW, depending on what they have in stock. There are some signs down there that are faded. One of the things I know that some of the residents talked about a three-way stop at that intersection coming out of Howard Gleason. You know, I'm not fully opposed to that. I'm not sure that it's necessary. But you know, one of the unintended consequences of a stop sign like that on Atlantic Ave is that road and that little section is heavily traveled by motorcycles with loud pipes. And when people stop, they have to start up again. So we may reduce one problem, but cause a whole other set of problems. So that's something for the board to keep in mind. If we travel down the street a little bit further to Stockbridge Street, Stockbridge at Margin. Chris, if you give me the rights to share my screen, there's a
Yeah, we can do that.
there's a section right at that intersection that's overgrown. It appears, and I talked to Carl Sestito about this, it appears that, you know, some private property may be encroaching on public property. And we're gonna have to deal with that. And I'm gonna share this picture out. Can you guys see that? So
Yep, we can see it.
someone apparently this is from Kyle, someone removed the stop sign there and put in some curbing that's, you know, absolutely town property there. So that obviously has to be cut back and the stop sign reinstalled. There was a stop sign there because there is a stop line, but they yanked that stop sign. So we may have to work with town council to put that a butter on notice there that, you know, that area of the corner has to be cleared out so we can open up the sight lines. But other than that, I'll entertain any questions or whatever you guys need.
All right, Diane, I see your hand.
So so I understand this, we've got the board, and not us, specific this board, but a board has approved a stop sign at Howard Gleason, which has been there all summer, I believe, or for a good part of the summer. And there was also one at Stockbridge. So
sorry.
yeah, no. So there's, I understand that you have to deal with the end of Stockbridge and returning that, and that's a little more complicated. There's one at Howard Gleason. So the only other stop sign option would be to put it at Atlantic coming towards the harbor, which you're not recommending, and I wouldn't recommend. Is that correct?
Yeah, you'd be putting a stop sign in the middle of a straightaway, basically.
Right.
I mean, it's not a corner, but it's
Right.
you know,
So
you're using a stop sign to slow down traffic, which is
right. So your recommendation is to maybe put a go slow or some sign on Atlantic heading in the direction of and restoring the sign at the end of Stockbridge.
There is an existing sign that's really old and faded that shows like almost like a hairpin turn between like 20 Atlantic in that corner. That should be updated to, you know, a lot of the signs around town have to be updated. A lot of them are just really in bad shape and replaced with high glow yellow signs. That's the standard nowadays. We should replace that with the sign that, you know, the DPW deems appropriate for a dangerous curve. I know they don't like using that wording. I did prepare a memo. I sent it to Tracy and Chris. It has a picture of a recommended sign in my recommendations. I'm not sure if you guys saw it. I got it to them the other day.
And just one quick follow-up. I know signs are pretty standard and regulated. I mean, is there a sign that uses an icon or something that instead of saying dangerous curve actually shows people walking or people crossing or you know, a dog? Because that's the problem, is the pedestrian choking that area with all the cars coming in all different directions where it's real narrow.
I'm not sure if that type of sign would be appropriate for there because it's coming up on it. I mean, there's a manual that's, you know, 800 pages thick that outlines, you know, there's signs for everything, and there's a standard that goes along with everything. So, you know, Brian Joyce is an engineer, and he'd be able to guide what would be allowed. You just can't, you know, there's certain sizes, colors, and definitely a standard that goes along with those signs. But you know, coming into a corner like that, I don't think you could put a pedestrian sign. Going the other way, you probably could. You know, going basically north, you could. But coming into a corner like that, I don't think you can put that. But I'll leave that to the engineer.
Okay. Jean, I saw your hand next, then Corey.
So thank you for doing all that work, Chief. I appreciate it. And the quick response also to the residents, many, some of whom I think are in the audience, so I would be curious to hear from them. I will say that that is a very dangerous curve. There's no question about it. If you run, if you bike, if you walk in either direction, I mean, I hate the thought of waiting for an accident to happen to then put something up that would then prevent the next one. I'm wondering, short of a stop sign, because I take your point too about the motorcycles, and I would invite feedback from the neighbors on that, because that may be an impact they might not like. And so let's assume that we want to take the stop sign off the table because of that reason alone. Is there anything else we can do other than the dangerous curve sign to help slow the traffic as it comes up, from Atlantic to the downtown area? Because they already have a slow sign there and it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the design of the road. Unfortunately, we're a victim of our own success. There's a lot of people out using that area of that stretch of road, and you have to walk defensively. I mean, I'm not, don't get me wrong, we could put a stop sign there. It doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not sure that it's going to have the desired effect. I think it may cause other problems with it. It's a decision the board would have to make. That said, you're not supposed to use, I know that manual that I talk of, it's called the MUT, the acronym is the MUT CD. It specifically says, don't do this with stop signs, to reduce speed in areas like this. There's a regulation that's cited. I can share that with the board. So we don't want to run afoul of that. But when we first started talking about this, that regulation was pointed out to me by DPW. I wasn't familiar with that before, but I did research it, and it does. It is not a best practice.
Yeah. And I know we've been trying to work on overall traffic calming measures too, Chief. So we appreciate this feedback. And we actually do have 2 members of the public who would like to offer some opinions. Corey, do you want to go first? And then we'll go to the
please.
members of the public.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, I run this road a couple times a week, and it's really not the curve, it's the blindness that's the issue. There's a fence there, and there's a telephone pole. So I mean, rather than introducing a stop sign and really kind of making a broader problem, I think that if we identify specifically the problem of visibility, can we work with?
Sorry.
That's okay. Can we work with that landowner to review that fence? I mean, that if you modify that fence, move it in a few feet, that dangerous curve is no longer a dangerous curve. And that's really, I mean, if you drive by there, that's the point where you come around that corner. If there's someone walking their dog, you don't see them until you're right there. And if there's another, so to me, that's the solution, is to solve the real problem here. And I'd like to hear about options to do that in a way that's, we're not, tearing people's fences down, but we can come to a solution that fixes the problem, but also keeps people's privacy.
And that's a really good perspective as a pedestrian and a runner, Corey. Thank you. All right, we have a couple members of the public. First is Rick Shea, and then Andy Whitney. I've promoted you both. Rick, say your address again for the record and give us your thoughts. Checking if you're unmuted, Rick.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good. Hi.
Yeah, Rick Shea, 52 Margin Street. So basically just one house over from Stockbridge. And it's very clear that people coming out of Stockbridge have to stop, because people coming from Atlantic toward the harbor are often, with a speed limit of 25 miles an hour, which people don't necessarily adhere to, are often going 30, 35 or more, coming down Atlantic and making that, as Corey said, a blind
Yep.
turn there, and there are no sidewalks on either side of the street. And it's extremely dangerous. Anybody, whether it's pedestrians or cars coming out of Stockbridge and having to make a right or a left-hand turn, because people come really quickly around that corner. Now, when I come down Atlantic towards the harbor and I come to that intersection and I know what's ahead and that it's a blind corner and that Stockbridge Street is just coming up about 50 or 60 feet on the right, to me, a safe speed to go through that corner is about 10 miles an hour. So I don't see any way to get to people to a 10-mile-an-hour speed without having a stop sign. And actually, one suggestion I would make is we're doing the Elm Street corridor work right now. And I would suggest that we add Margin Street to that project, because I think Margin Street from Elm Street around the corner to Howard Gleason, where a lot of people go to the yacht club. They're either driving to the yacht club, they're walking to the yacht club. You've got kids that bike or walk to the yacht club for their lessons. And I think we need a sidewalk strategy. Right now, the sidewalk goes to Stockbridge, and then you have about a 60-foot no man's land that everybody's got to maneuver. And ordinarily, as a pedestrian, you want to be on the left side of the street facing traffic, but that's the blind side of the intersection. And it's
Right.
extremely dangerous to be on that side of the street. So often people get to Stockbridge and then panic, try to cross the street, but it's blind. You can't see around the corner, and people could be coming around that corner 35, 40 miles an hour. But you get over to the other side to where the wall is, and then you go around the corner on the right side of the street, heading down Atlantic before you then cross over to the left side of the street where you can face traffic again. So I think we need a solution there. And actually, I think we need a crosswalk at Stockbridge, at where the sidewalk ends, crossing over and then creating a sidewalk to go up Howard Gleason, for all of these kids and families, that are going up towards, there's going to be 4 more homes up that direction, over the next several years too. There's 4 lots that are in the process of being developed. So one recommendation I would have would be we could look at this in the context of the Elm Street corridor project and just extend it the length of Margin Street. The other point that I would add is, this intersection is dangerous. And then, of course, some people will think, well, it's just a summer issue.
Right.
But in the winter, that area is often wet. And partly it's wet because of ocean water that, kind of comes up from the marsh. But partly it's just coming down from the Evans property. It comes down the hill. And for some reason, that stretch of that road is extremely dangerous. It's icy, it's slushy, and it's a pedestrian no man's land. It's very, very dangerous. And again, somebody coming up Atlantic towards the harbor, can hit that ice. And again, if they see a stop sign, then they're going to be in a mode of slowing down. But, as it is now, they're just barreling through. And I bet the other thing is.
So Rick, just real quick, are you saying that you also think there needs to be a 3-way stop sign?
Well, actually, to me, that would be a preference, but but coming from Margin away from the harbor is not as critical to me. Ideally, I personally think that would be helpful to have a stop at Howard Gleason. But, to me, the most critical is coming up Atlantic.
Okay, we really appreciate.
And even though you don't really truly have a cross street, you have Howard Gleason coming from the left, and then about 60 feet later, you have Stockbridge Street coming in from the right. But, you've got a blind corner there at a 45-degree angle. And it's, it clearly was 2 separate streets.
Right.
It's not one street continuing.
Okay, Diane, do you have a question for what he's saying or a separate comment?
No, I just wanted to comment on what Rick said, which basically I'm on the Elm Street Corridor Working Group. That scope is really specific. However, I will definitely bring this up because I think tonight, if there's any short-term thing to look into, it might be replacing the stop sign at the bottom of Stockbridge, figuring out what kind of signage we need coming from like Sandy Beach up Atlantic toward the harbor. And then you know, we can see, depending on what goes on with Elm Street, whether there's something we can expand. But I think there's a bigger picture. And I think once the harbor gets redeveloped, and as Rick said, the new homes on Howard Gleason, that activity level is only going to increase. And we're going to have to be very mindful of some long-term solutions for that area.
No, I totally agree. Rick, thank you so much for sharing all these thoughts. It's helpful to hear your opinions.
You're very welcome.
Jack, your hand is up next, and then I want to entertain Andy Whitney. Hold on, you're muted. Still muted, Jack.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Let's let Andy go first.
All right.
He was in line
Andy.
first.
Yes. Andy. Thank
Andy
you.
Whitney, Andy Whitney, 50 Margin Street. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate jumping the line here.
I'm just pandering for votes.
Yeah.
That's all.
When's the next election?
For me, never.
Very soon. Yeah. Andy, go ahead.
I'm in favor of a three-way stop sign.
Okay.
I fully believe a stop. So believe it or not, after you make the corner by the Margin Street dock, heading towards the beach, going north, as Chief Quigley said, it's amazing how fast vehicles can get on that straightaway in front of the Roy property. And similarly, coming from the beach, that straightaway on Atlantic Ave, as you approach the corner where Margin Street begins, it's amazing how fast traffic can get moving. I think a three-way stop sign, not necessarily, not at Stockbridge Street, but at the end of Atlantic Ave, on that sharp corner, as Corey mentioned, is appropriate. I think from a pure safety standpoint, Corey might run that route a couple times a week. We walk it just about every day, and you literally hug that fence or the shrubs there, the privet bushes, and you literally listen for a car coming at you, heading south, coming from the beach, heading south, and you just know enough to get into the bushes if you hear a car coming. I think a stop sign is going to slow the traffic down so that it's going to, hopefully it'll prevent a bad accident.
Thank you, Andy. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that feedback. Thank you to Andy and Rick. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. One of the things that struck me in one of the pictures is it's not just a problem there, but around town, is fences and shrubbery that has grown beyond where it's supposed to be higher. I believe that there is in fact a town bylaw that says the fence can only be so high because you can't see around the corner. I've seen a couple of places around town where that's true, but I thank you, Bill or Chief Quigley, for putting that up, because that clearly creates a hazard just by its nature. It's beautiful. Whoever planted it did a wonderful job, but clearly you can't see around it, and then there's a fence behind it, and I don't know. So I think that's a part of the solution, and I think we should also be aware around town there are several things like that. I don't know how we slow down traffic in certain areas. I've been in favor of having an intensive enforcement area in the downtown to get the traffic down to 10 or 15. And I think that type of concept, especially in scenic areas and roads, people understand that. I've been out in Carmel and 17-mile drive, and they'll do that. So it's an intensive traffic, and I'm wondering if we ought to kind of develop some protocols for that, because there are other places in town, but I'm in that intersection frequently. And I think it's a good idea to figure out some way to do it. And I understand what the chief says about the stop signs. Those motorcycles go up there all the time. And when they accelerate, which they will, it will add another level of stress to the people who live there. So I don't think we have an answer, but I think we're starting to move to some answers.
And again, I know the only agenda item for tonight was this specific stop sign, but
Yep.
the traffic calming measures in general are something that we have planned to continue talking about, and they are important, because you're right, Jack, there are other areas in town that are as problematic. I believe we have one other resident who might be one of the fence owners. I'm not sure of your name, but I just promoted you to talk. If you could say your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jerry Sturgio. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Jerry. Yes, we can
Hi.
hear you.
And I live at 66 Margin Street. And again, what we witness every day from my porch, and I think I'm one of the people in the town that has raised this issue to Chief Quigley and his traffic officer, Officer Lawrence, and he's been absolutely responsive in any of the plentiful emails that I've sent him for the last 2 or 3 years. So I really believe that I'm encouraged by the talk. I do own that fence, and I am, in terms of civic responsibility, whatever we have to do to work with you, whether we have to lower that a little bit, move it in so the visibility, because again, I think this is an accident waiting to happen. And I'm very concerned because I just see too much in the last 2 or 3 years where young kids on bicycles are actually yelling at people on motorcycles and yelling at people in trucks that are going through that area. And that is not what we want for our children going to and from that yacht club. So I'm encouraged that we're talking about this, and I really believe we've got to take some measures to correct it. And whatever the heck I have to do in terms of working with you, in terms of modifications, we will do it, because I don't want to see anybody get hurt in that area.
Thank you so much, and for coming on and being willing to do that. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is right now with your fence, but seriously, that's amazing that you offered that, and we appreciate
Well, again, I'm open to consideration because we've got to do something collectively in that area.
completely. And this is clearly a way bigger problem than just a stop sign debate too, which is what I think this is showing. This discussion's bigger than just a stop sign. Jean. And then Corey.
I think it's very telling that we have a resident who's willing to take down what's probably a very important privacy fence.
Well, actually move it.
Or move it
Okay.
in order
Or lower
to.
it. I'm not sure I want the thing down because of the noise from the motorcycles, unless Chief Quigley's going to make the motorcycle drivers, abide by the pipe laws and stuff in the state of Massachusetts. And I don't think that's going to happen.
That might be above all of our pay grades, and
Yeah, I think-
including Chief Quigley's.
I believe so.
Well, I guess I do have a question for the neighbors in terms of what they think about, if there was a stop sign there, do they have concerns about the motorcycle noise?
I mean,
Again, I have concerns about the motorcycle noise every day because of the pipe issue, right? They take the pipes off their bikes and they go through there, and the noise is horrendous. So how do you get them to comply with that when I haven't seen throughout New England anybody's trying to control that? It's just very difficult to control.
It's almost
No,
unenforceable.
Yeah, it's not enforceable. So at least we can enforce some better safety measures, even if we can't control the noise problem.
Andy Whitney again. I'll just
Go ahead.
say the motorcycles, the 3 neighbors that are on here, they know that there's one that goes by every night about midnight that is extremely loud. But they're still, they're still shifting. They're still shifting, going by the house on the straightaways or downshifting as they come into the corner. So if we're just worried about the motorcycle noise, that shouldn't prohibit us from putting up a stop sign.
Oh, completely. No, I agree with Andy. Good point. I mean, it does seem like the neighbors and some of us have consensus that a 3-way stop sign might be the start to a solution. Obviously not the entire solution, but it does seem like there is support for a possible 3-way stop sign. Jean, did you have another follow-up?
I wanted to make a motion on adding a stop sign at the end of Atlantic, right before, it's sort of in the middle of the fence. I think, talking about placement in terms of where would make sense, because you don't want to add it right at the end of the blind curve. you know, one of my concerns with the stop sign and adding it there was the motorcycle noise, but to the extent that the residents, I think, are willing to sort of trade off safety versus the noise, which may already be occurring anyway, regardless of the stop sign.
Okay, a motion is.
I'm willing to,
Do we
so
have-
I would specifically move that we add in addition to the other 2 stop signs at Howard Gleason and Stockbridge, one on Atlantic that is a certain amount of feet prior to the blind curve on the straightaway, in order to have people stop before the blind curve and then slowly work their way around. I think that probably makes the most sense in terms of safety, but I would invite, you know, Chief Quigley and others to weigh
Hold
in.
on, do we have a
Just-
second and then we can have discussion on this?
Just for clarification, Gene, do you
go
mean
ahead.
only one stop sign going southbound, no stop signs going northbound?
Yeah, not a 4-way stop. So it would be in addition to the 2.
three-way.
It'd be like a
Say.
2-way stop, 2 out of the
Are
3.
you saying 2 or 3?
Yeah, so
I hate to butt in, just.
All right, go ahead, Chief, go ahead, Chief.
Before you make a motion,
Yeah.
and I think there's consensus among the neighborhood and, I'm all for this, as long as the neighborhood is for it as well, which that seems to be, the case, but I wouldn't be too specific with your motion. Maybe you can make a motion. I would suggest that, a stop sign be placed in the southbound lane of Atlantic Ave in the area of Howard Gleason Road, consistent with regulations. Because if you say it's going to be right at full number or whatever, that could be problematic for the engineer.
Okay.
But that's my only thing. But I think this is a good conversation, and it's really nice to have participation from the neighbors, and obviously they're really engaged and involved, and this is a good thing.
okay,
Thanks.
then
Yeah, go ahead, Jean. Do you want to redo the motion?
I will withdraw my prior motion and move to put a stop sign on the southbound Atlantic Ave, consistent with regulations in order to maximize safety around the blind curve.
Okay, do we have a second? And then we can discuss.
I'll second that.
Second from Corey. Any more discussion on this? Jack, your hand's up, and then Diane.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take it down.
Diane.
Can't find my unmute button.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that. No, I literally just, I'm okay with this motion with the revision. Typically in the past, when we've voted on signage, we've already had the engineering done. And so, I'm happy to make this the intention of the board is that we do something, but the engineering is going to be complicated because of the wetlands on Atlantic Ave, because of that lower fence, because of the private property, where is it going to be? So I think as long as we understand that this could take a little bit of time to make it right, I'm all in favor of doing whatever we can to, in the best interest of public safety. But I think it might be a little more complicated than just putting a sign in there.
No,
I
that's
just
a
wanna
fair
make sure we-
point, Diane. And I think because it does seem urgent, we want to get the ball rolling, but obviously we also want to get an update on how the engineering's going or what the final location is. Chief, are you okay with starting the ball rolling with this motion on this?
100%. I mean, we could start tomorrow. We could, if Brian's around, we'll go out and walk, and he can take his measurements, and we
Okay.
can probably have, if Jason is available, we'll have it drawn up and
All right,
get to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
and
I-
I would support,
yeah.
I would support Diane's idea.
okay. So we can get the ball rolling here and then get an update, obviously, on the final location. But a special thanks to all of you neighbors for showing up and voicing your opinion. It's really helpful to hear your side, especially because you live there 24 hours a day. So thank you to all of you who showed up. We really appreciate it. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote on this, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, I'd also just encourage the chief to reach out to the resident with the fence just to see if there's anything creative that can be done at the same time.
Yes.
Jean Haley Dipple died.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right, great discussion. And clearly there's a need for further discussions about traffic calming and safety issues everywhere in town, not just Elm Street, not just here. So let's continue to have these discussions because it's really helpful to be continually having them, I think. All right.
Just
Yeah, go
today,
ahead.
just today, I get emails from South Main Street, Norfolk Road, East Street, and
Yeah.
Highland Ave. So there's plenty of
I know,
issues.
Corey.
Okay, Chief, if I wouldn't mind just sharing a story. I was running today and I ran by one of the solar powered stops, traffic speed
Yep.
signs. And it was a 25-mile-an-hour road and it was 45 miles an hour the person was going and they did not slow down. They just, that was at 45 the whole time. So I'm a little worried that the effectiveness of those may be decreasing as we're adding them around, but
I'll tell you that
personal observation.
the tickets are up, they're way up. The enforcement, it's mostly warning. But something to, money, unfortunately.
Yeah, they work for me. I slow down when I see them, but clearly they don't work for everyone. You're right. We really have to keep the narrative of getting people to slow down in town. I mean, we've tried with lowering the speed limits, but you see people going way too fast everywhere, and it is such a safety issue. So we have to keep discussing this.
If I may just interject, I think
Go ahead.
Hingham has one of these. It's a flashing, once you hit above a certain speed, it goes blue lights as if like there's.
Oh,
police.
yeah, that's fun.
That always works. Yeah, that works for me. I've
siren.
slowed down on those ones. Those ones are
Pretty
more
effective.
expensive, aren't
Right.
they, Chief?
Yeah, you don't try for the high score.
Add the siren.
And again,
Well,
we don't.
those are
want-
actually, as an update, I know a little off topic, but the signs for Forest Ave are the radar signs.
Yep.
They are all ordered and probably they're due to arrive any day, really. We
And the
actually have part of them, the
Oh, that's
poles
good.
arrived. So they're gonna be going in.
And maybe we can even have you at one of our September meetings, just giving an update on all that, Chief.
Sure.
The signs and everything. The blue lights, again, we don't want neighbors being upset that they have blue lights in their windows either. Right? So placement of certain signs is obviously really important, but let's get a whole sign update maybe at a further meeting. Yeah, Diane.
I was gonna save this for selectman comment later, but I did get an inquiry about signs, the signs that we were gonna put near the nursery schools in the village about going slow. So just know that that's something that should be incorporated, especially if possible before school starts.
Yeah, all the stuff was ordered by DPW, I believe,
Right.
July 1st. And
Good update.
it's starting to come in.
Okay. So they're ordered and we can have you, I believe the school start the 8th or 9th.
Seventh.
Okay, so on the 7th, we can at least have an update on that day from you about the signs. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, neighbors.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, moving on to approving our legal contracts. You should have all seen those in our packet. I know they were there. Chris, I'm going to let you give a quick update on that.
So all three firms have sent engagement letters. Fairly full, and we started onboarding. Well, two of them are already onboarded, so we've already started the transition process with KP. After tonight, I'll send a formal letter and be working with Paul Durant's firm to do some transition work. I had a great meeting with Carolyn Murray last week. She was in town. I spent a lot of time here. Member, a lot of staff, and also got to meet Terry and Corey, which was great. She was in town, and she'll be doing more in person. In fact, she and Amy Questle were involved in a briefing with the Concom folks today. They will both be there on Thursday night for the Concom meeting with the new agent. So there's a whole great transition plan set up for that. So that all said, I think the agreements are pretty, I think, standard. Is any questions on any of them?
Diane?
I just had a question and it might just be, see how it goes, but there's no retainer for general counsel, which typically we've had an arrangement with general counsel. So is that just something you're going to track and see how that works?
Yeah, so we're trying to hammer that out. So I didn't want to slow this down tonight because we're formally transition. So yes, we have been working out that kind of concept, exactly what will fit within a retainer number is. So Michelle was working with KP this week on that, and I think they're concerned about throwing a number out that doesn't actually meet what we, maybe too high, they don't want to overcharge us, so. And I think we're still working through that, so again, we will have something, I think, concrete shortly. I think they want to get a feel for how it's going to work. So we're
What's our-
talking with them.
So
What's our present arrangement?
Well, for a long time, it was once 5, and then it was 25 because the work it wasn't just one firm doing it. So that said, the fees are a little different. But typically, I don't know.
Well, I mean, what was it? I mean, we had a written.
Yeah, it was 5, and then when it was one firm doing all the work, and then when the town council was just doing a more limited work, it was 2,500. So they're going to be doing a lot more work. So.
And what was the hourly rate?
Oh, I don't remember the hourly rate.
What was the hourly rate in their Dorenzis's proposal?
50 something, right? No.
I don't have any.
I mean, we could all go check in all the proposals, but it sounds.
The hourly rates that are in the agreements in front of you are what was proposed in the RFP. So.
All right.
Right. Corey?
Okay, I guess the question that I have, and I've been trying to find out, is one was at 195, which I thought was all of them, but the one is now at 225 per hour.
Which
I mean,
one?
I don't know. I
Which
mean,
one
it's
are you
just kind of a thing we'd like to know what we're approving.
Well,
for the price.
Corey, go ahead. What?
Yeah, so the KP contract is $255 an hour. So Jack, if your thoughts are, let's work backwards from there and just kind of we can use that as a marking stick, whatever the phrase is, to see if we're paying an appropriate amount of money. But it's $255 for KP.
No, it's 255, but I think that's substantially higher than the rates for the other proposals. Because I know Lamke's 195.
Yeah, but that was KP's proposed rate. Lamke gives us a very good deal. That was their proposed rate in their RFQ response. So that tracks just fine. But the question is, is the retainer agreement, is that in our best interest, right?
Totally.
Well, the other thing is that just because somebody proposes something doesn't mean we say, well, when you put something out for bid, would you say, well, somebody bid to do it for so much an hour and you want, 30% higher for an hourly rate. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Do we just not negotiate the rate or just approve a higher rate? I'm just trying to find out what the facts.
No, and again, I think because we haven't really done this for a lot of years in terms of having new general counsel too, I think it's a fair discussion to have. It also seems like we do have to, if we vote on the KP one, we have to just clarify scope of services for future language too, correct?
We don't have something that's votable. We don't know what we're approving.
Yeah, these were all circulated to the board over the weekend, or actually.
Oh, well, I know, that's why I picked up on that, and that's why I picked up on this 255 rate, and I tried to find all the original proposals to see what they were competing against. My assumption is when you do a request for proposals, you compare services and prices, and I guess we don't even know what the prices are.
No, they were all circulated to the
clear.
board, respectfully, Selectman.
So
we're all circulated, and by the way,
And that's why I'm asking questions
So
about
Jack,
what was
hold on,
circulated.
Jack, I'm confused with what you're saying, Jack. Are you saying that you think we should be negotiating or offering lower prices, that you're not happy with the ones offered?
Well, I think, yeah, I'm not sure that we kind of bought a pig in a poke. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. And now I find we don't even have what a retainer would look like.
Diane, you have,
Classic RF proper practices for RFQs.
So I'm just looking at the RFQ responses, which is when we made our
That's what I
decisions,
wanted to find, Diane.
what
Thank
we
you.
were what we were comparing. And so all of the attorneys submitted hourly rates. So KP submitted between 245 and 265 for town council range. Murphy Hesse was 220 for town council hours, and Brooks and Durensis was 210 for town council hours. The other segments of their application were priced out differently on an hourly basis. So, I mean, this is
Good.
well within what they proposed in their RFP and within the range that I just described for the other firms.
So there's no attempt to negotiate.
I mean, are you saying you think there should be, Jack? I mean, I was comfortable with the prices on here, but if you're
Well,
not,
I normally would say that when I put bids out, because I want to see who will do it for what. And I generally, most things, aren't you required to go to the low bid? I don't know. I know in a lot of contracts you are, municipal contracts, you're required to award it to the low bid.
I'm actually not sure about that in this situation.
If you'd like me to answer that, Carrie,
Go ahead.
professional services are not required to go to the low bid. They go to the best value as determined by the awarding. You don't want to get the cheapest price. You want to get the best value for professional services to the county.
And that's a good clarification, and that's
how
the
it
law.
works. There is no low bid requirement on professional services.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Corey?
Yeah, I was just gonna, suggest that maybe we just move Lamke and Clifford Kenny. And then, I think $5,000 at the 255 rate works out to be about 20 hours. It's probably a little bit low, but I think we should have the retainer in with KP. It'd be nice to have a starting point, I think that would be pretty appropriate. So maybe we just, Chris, if you can work with KP and bring it back to us for the next meeting, then we can, kind of have this, unless you absolutely need it for the interim.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're the transition is going to continue either way. So I will back a retainer and hopefully start going to you next week, so you can see it before the weekend.
Is everyone comfortable
Yeah,
moving ahead with
because
the other? Hold on. Is everyone comfortable
Right.
moving ahead with the other two contracts? Knowing that we'll still do KP at the next meeting? Okay, Corey, do you want to?
I do have one
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
procedural point. Which could be very serious. We did not notify the public that we were going to vote on a new council. We knew because we'd said in our previous meetings that we were going to deliberate, and we might in that deliberation appoint. However, what we sent to the public was we were merely going to deliberate. And I would say that probably a best practice would have been to, let the whole town know in a public forum that in fact the Board of Selectmen was going to consider and appoint a new council. People in town had no idea.
I mean, I think with our multiple posted meetings on the issue and then the word deliberation, I think implies that a decision will be made, Jack. So
I don't think so.
I appreciate that opinion, but I disagree with you on that.
All right, well, I don't think that if you talk to any person on the street and you told them we're going to deliberate, that they would conclude that there was going to be a decision made. Now, I know that the position of the board is they're going to do it anyway, but I just don't think that it's a proper thing to vote for a very important thing like that without telling the people in the town that you're going to vote.
I mean, we mentioned it multiple times in meetings.
Deliberation. I'm just saying, wasn't there?
Well,
And as you read
It's irrelevant now because we've already made the decision. So I think we need to decide about actually approving the legal contracts. We voted on this.
I know we voted on it. I
Right,
know
so-
if you voted on it again, that would be the same vote. I'm aware of that.
Well, so
However,
my
I think it
question
was an
is-
improper vote.
All right. Well, my question now is, are we comfortable moving ahead with the other two contracts for tonight? Jean, I see your hand up, and then Corey.
I'll let Corey go first. Sorry.
I was gonna make a motion to that we approve Brain is Gone, Clifford and Kenny, and
Lamke. Lamke.
Jim Lamke's contracts. That was going to, I was going to make that motion if Jean, unless you wanted to say something before that.
I'll second you.
Okay, the motion made second. Thank you.
So-
Sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for those two contracts. Roll call vote, starting with Jack.
I would vote for those two, as I previously indicated, but I think until the town is aware that we are voting on appointing a new town council or reappointing the existing, whatever, that the vote was improper, so I could
So your
not.
vote's a no. Okay,
No, I'm just saying it's an improper vote.
well, is that a no or an abstention, Jack?
I just said what I said.
Okay,
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye. All right, we will add KP for the next meeting for that legal contract. All right, moving on to a Norfolk County update.
Very
Jean, I know-
sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Could I just want to note on the KP law, like, Chris, just in terms of discussions with them, maybe if you want to see how it plays out and what kind of council services, I don't want to set a retainer amount that we might not come close to or might not be reflective of what our actual use is going to be. So, I would have been in favor of continuing with an hourly rate. And maybe what we need to do is tweak the language that is at a minimum of or not to exceed for a couple of months, just to see what rhythm we fall into with the need of town council services.
Like a range almost, that's a good suggestion.
Or just kind of a not to exceed amount that is at a level of typical town council services as you determine what will fall under town council services. So I just think it's more nuanced than let's get a retainer in there. So I'll leave that to you to work out with the firms or the firm.
Chris, do you have a response to that?
No, I'll bring something back. And I remember it's town council's litigation, it's environmental land use, it's kind of all of that. So, yeah, so we'll bring something back before.
Okay. All right. And again, Corey and I and Chris had a great lunch with Carolyn Murray, and she's fantastic. And I'm just really impressed with KP so far. So things are going well with that transition. All right, Norfolk County update. Jean, I believe you all had a meeting yesterday, correct?
Yes, and sadly, my flight was canceled on Sunday because of the hurricane. And so I was in flight during the Norfolk County meeting. And so I'm going to have to rewatch or watch the recording once it comes out. But Chris was on. And so I would give the floor to Chris to tell everyone the good news.
All right.
So there was a call yesterday that the entire county and their commissioners it wasn't a super long meeting, but what they basically said is that they're collaborating with Bristol and Plymouth to have the same system for all three counties. They're retaining a accounting firm to create a portal so everyone can apply for funding, and they have a law firm that'll do the vetting to make sure everything fits within the guidelines. What they've committed to is that every community will get its 2019 census-based allocation. It's $194 times population. $1.6 million for the town of Cohasset, a little bit more than that actually. And so we have the right access to that for the next 2 years, it sounds like, at least. Obviously sooner the better is always better, but the portal won't be open until September. And then they'll start distributing money. They said by October. That's the plan once projects are approved. And they'll distribute them as needed. So they're not going to give you all the money up front. Obviously, if a project's going to take 6 or 12 months, they'll release that issue as you ask for. So that was good. They're still working through the logistics of a portal. They're still working through the logistics of management. And it did say there's going to be a combined total 3% off the top they're going to be taking for admin fees and for some of their own projects they need to do. So, and they're also going to use any interest that's generated on the funds, which they now have in their possession, $137 million, And they're gonna use that interest to pay expenses. So that's what they announced. The video should be up on the screen. It should be available on their website, hopefully today or tomorrow. And we'll continue to monitor and work with them on that. So I think it's gonna be really important that we see how this portal works, kind of review process there is. The good news though is that that allocation will be guaranteed to the individual communities for at least 2 years. But in the third year, they said they might start trying to claw some of it back if people aren't spending it.
Yeah,
So
that
the
is
good news,
good.
Chris. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jean. No, go ahead, Jean.
I was just gonna say, we were worried we were gonna have to compete and sort of race out there with projects to get our per capita share that we otherwise would have gotten if they had directly passed it down to us, but that's not the case. It doesn't sound like that we have that money sitting there ready for us when we need it. I mean, we have to get it ready within the 2 years. But now we're looking at, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong on the math, a little over $2.4 million that we're essentially guaranteed to get so long as we have eligible projects, although we get the 800 right off the top, right, Chris? And so there's nothing we need to do for that.
Well, for the 8 comes in 2 installments. We got the first 400,000 plus, and we get the next a year from now.
Okay.
And that's money that is allocable by the board as we go. And we're going to start talking about that, I think, in September with the beginnings of some smaller projects. The bigger money is probably best tied to projects that are, capital type projects, I think, or things that are very tied back to a large expense or a detailed project. So talk more about that. Obviously, we have time. Said, time goes fast. We also, as we've already discussed tonight, all of you have discussed, some of this money could actually help seed work that could make us available for more money, right? If it can help studies or planning, because that giant infrastructure package is kicking around at the federal level now. One of the reasons that our representatives weren't available for that press conference tomorrow. So if some of that gets moving, we could see availability of those funds as early as next year. So, and we know there's a lot of water and sewer money potentially in that. And some infrastructure money. So something we're definitely watching closely.
Yeah, there are a lot of balls in the air here, I think, with this, but I'm really pleasantly surprised to hear we might not get swallowed up by some of the bigger competitor towns in the county that I think we were worried were going to dominate getting this money. So that's actually really good news.
Well, and it sounds like they're going to handle some of the administrative burden for us too, in terms of, and I talked with folks at Norfolk County about, whether they're going to do auditing and vetting, because what we don't want to do is get the money and then it gets clawed back, which is happening right now through the CARES Act funds with other communities. We're like, we don't want an unexpected $1 million bill for something that wasn't really eligible. And so, it would take money and resources for us to do that on our own. And hopefully Norfolk County is going to pick up some of that.
So when is the next meeting, or maybe we need to start doing regular county updates too, because there's a lot happening, I think, very quickly.
We haven't gotten anything yet.
Okay.
Unless Chris, you know of an update, but I haven't gotten anything.
No, you should be, I believe they've notified the county that you're the official representative to the advisory committee now. And they think, I think Jack could explain better. I think they met quarterly at least, or something like that. I don't. So there should be a meeting coming up sometime this fall. You're free to reach out directly and say, hey, make sure I'm on the email list, make sure I get notified of the meetings. So
all right. Let's make sure Jean is in there. So, I mean, I do believe we informed them that she's our rep.
Oh yeah, I've already talked to them about it. My only point is I don't think they've set the meeting date yet.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as soon as the next meeting happens, we can have that on our agenda, but that's very good news. Better news than I expected with that. All right. Any other questions on that? All right. Moving on to our special town meeting date setting, thinking December 13th. Chris.
Yeah, so we looking at this, December 6th is actually Hanukkah, so it's probably not that night. The week before that is Thanksgiving, right? We're coming right out of Thanksgiving holiday. That's always a little bit of a challenge. The 13th is probably as late as you really want to go. Now we want to do one Christmas week. So the 13th is a Monday. We often have these on Monday. It also gets us a little more distance from the spike that we're seeing with COVID. Hopefully by December, we'll be in a better place. So what would happen is that if you approve the date tonight, and by the way, the emergency rules are still in place, so if for whatever reason the meeting couldn't be held in person, that you could delay it or push it back to January. There's abilities to still maneuver as circumstances warrant. And we're going to explore not only the gym, but see if there's any other location we might be able to do a bigger indoor space that's more socially distanced. We'd start by releasing a request for interest of articles. I know that Master Plan has some thoughts, possible warrant articles apart from carving up free cash that would be available. So you'd start looking at those as early as your next meeting on the 7th, and then it would be all vetted, and you have to lock the warrant down really by the end of October, really very beginning of November. So.
Right. And I know location was something you and I were talking about. I mean, we just don't know how we're going to feel about having it in the gym. Obviously, it's too cold to have it outside at the Music Circus, but we can be looking into a couple other options too for locations. Again, it would be nice to have this meeting and be able to do it. We really don't know where we're going to be safety wise in terms of COVID, but I think that date seems good based on the information we know now. Diane.
This is a personal thing. That's like the worst week possible for me. It's our tech week and move into theater and whatnot, but who knows what will happen. But it's not about me. But is there any reason to have it in December, or could we move to the first week of January? And forget about me, but just in general, might that be easier than the rush of the holiday season for people? And then also you did address this a little bit, but just in terms of what articles, and I would love to get maybe that on our next agenda to see what we anticipate taking action on other than the free cash, and whether there's going to be anything for town hall. I know that at their meetings they've discussed, whether to bifurcate and ask just in terms of reload money, et cetera. So
on the date setting, I will say, I feel like January 3rd is too early in January, considering a lot of people are usually on vacation the weekend of the 1st. So I would definitely say not the 3rd if we moved it to January. Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, that was basically my observation as well, and especially because we, as a society, check out for 2 weeks. So, and then kind of trying to reboot for the 10th, now we're a full month behind where we should have been. So,
and you're always doing stuff last minute. Sorry to interrupt. So you might as well.
Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, Diane, I hate to
totally get it. Yeah.
Okay. I can't find another better date for it than that,
I kind of agree. I feel like psychologically for the town, doing it before holidays and New Year's is probably smarter, but I understand. I mean, every week in December is busy for everyone. You know what I mean? But I also think, I don't know, January is getting to be almost a little late. So
we're in annual town meeting mode, right. Usually the first week of January. So I totally get it.
There's nothing that's I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
There's nothing that's sacrosanct about a Monday. It's just usually easy. I mean, you could do it a different day of the week. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't do it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I mean, so it could be any time. I wouldn't go any later than the 13th. I mean, I think just getting too close to the point, but you could do it anytime that first week of December. I mean, and by the way, if you want to chew on this, and you could go as late as next meeting to set the date. It would be preferable to do it now, but you could do it.
We need to double check the Hanukkah dates because I know we don't want to conflict with that.
Well, Hanukkah is 8 nights, so it's hard to.
Nice.
And the Patriots play on the 6th.
All right, I'm tempted to say we keep the 13th. Gene and Jack, do you have any strong feelings?
Hanukkah ends on the 6th.
Go ahead, Jack.
I think we need a little good luck. Put me down for the 13th.
I like the number 13. I think it's lucky. Gene, do you have any thoughts with your schedule?
I mean, I'm amenable to trying to maneuver, but I take the points about January. January is also the time when you start moving into the budget season too.
Yeah.
With advisory, and it just, everyone starts moving more mentally into the Springtown meeting. So it's a little tricky.
I'm fine,
I'm sorry, Diane. I get it. I'm sorry. I think you're outnumbered. Okay.
Sorry. No, it
Do you
makes
need a
sense.
motion for this?
And by the way, I want to say, I do think we should keep it on Monday. I don't think we should get in the habit of just finding a date. We've
People think
traditionally
Yeah,
moved from Saturday to Monday nights, and it's made a lot of difference for a lot of people, so.
I agree. All right, Corey, yeah, I think we need to make a motion.
Okay, I would make a motion to set the date for special town meeting for December 13th, 2021.
Do we have a second?
I'd second.
All right, roll call vote.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple Dye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right, sorry, Diane. Maybe the world will be totally different by then and your schedule will change. You never know.
If my schedule changes, it's going to be a disaster
I know,
for me
so
professionally, so.
let's just- fingers crossed, knock on wood, that we'll all be able to meet in person on December 13th. All right, moving into the town manager update.
I will just be very brief here. So the next meeting, we're hopeful to introduce you to a couple of other new staff members.
Great.
So on the animal control officer, Josh Kimball is with us, ready to go, and has started. Norwell votes on the municipal agreement on Wednesday, tomorrow night. So, and I did talk with their town manager yesterday, so that seems to be in a good place. So hopefully you'll meet Josh at the next meeting. We'll get Ryan in to meet with you next time as well. So that's the next couple of staff updates.
Okay,
We're excited. So
great. All right, select board comments. I'll go first tonight to spice it up. Just another plug for everyone who's available next Tuesday, especially board members, if you can make it to the vigil. It's a really powerful, important event. I think it's really important for us to show support for Safe Harbor and everyone organizing that. So please come to the vigil if you can. The other thing I wanted to bring up is just to get a feel from all of you about how you feel about staying on Zoom for our meetings. I know that things are changing by the week. I know we were hoping to get back in person. I know we got some new technology to get back in person, but I did just want to gauge all of your temperatures here, how you're feeling about that. I mean, I think it's a tough decision. I think a lot of towns are grappling with this. I wanted to get some quick feedback on whether we keep them the way we're going or if we try to do some in person, or how you're feeling. Corey and then Diane.
I mean, I think for us, safety first. You know, I don't like this, but it's, you know, we make a sacrifice. I also, I think today's input from the community on the stop sign really wouldn't have been possible necessarily if we were in person. I mean, that was pretty cool. And I think now that you know, the community has gotten used to this format. So I'm comfortable staying this way if that's what the board wants.
Okay, Diane.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. And there is a mask mandate for at least unvaccinated people in town. So I think the right thing to do, as much as I think everybody should be vaccinated, is to keep us virtual, as much as I don't like it.
All right, Jack.
I think we stay with Zoom, but I think that we need to technologically have allow for a hybrid, because I think there are a lot of very good things about Zoom, good things about getting together in that. So I think we need to develop a hybrid, and I know a lot of other people agree.
And by hybrid, Jack, are you saying that we're in person as a board, but other people are on Zoom? Is that how you're defining it?
We could either be in town hall together or do in Zoom together. I mean, I look at here and I can see every one of you remarkably attractive members of the select board, and I can see your and that's wonderful. But you know, so I think we try to figure out if we can merge the best of both formats.
All right, let's keep playing with the idea. I figured that would be the feedback, but did just want to chat about that. All right, Corey, you can go next.
Well, so thanks for the lead in, Carrie, because I wanted to bring up that this was just in the Mariner, that this will be the 4th year of the Cohasset Youth Ambassador Program.
Yes.
This is something that has been brought up before, and it's so heartening that we've got this program, and there are you know, students in Cohasset that are really engaged about doing this. I mean, this is, you know, a bunch of adults can yell at kids all day long and nothing's going to get through to them, but to have people that are, you know, friends and to step up for the leadership role is just amazing. And this weekend, the newest batch will start training. So not that you're listening now, but if you are, thank you for participating in this program. All the new students, I really look forward to meeting you, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do over the next year, because what you guys do, what the whole team does there is so vital. It goes beyond words. So thank you.
Yeah, and Corey and I are going to meet them this weekend. We're excited to get them encouraged to support, get involved in town government. Got to start them young. All right. Diane, then Jack, then Jean.
I do have a couple of things.
Oh, you just muted yourself. There you go.
I'll sit on my hands. For a future agenda item, if we could have an update on Treats Pond and where that stands based on our town meeting vote. I also just want to put a plug in for the new Cohasset Anchor, which is a new media source. And I know that there's a Hingham Anchor, and it's done very well. And they're covering a lot of the town committee and board meetings. So welcome to them. And writing on behalf of Cohasset Anchor is Carol Meyer, who wrote for the Hingham Journal for a long time. So I know she's in the audience. So hello, Carol. Couple of other quick things. Congratulations to Nicole Bellacci on the birth of her son, and also the leadership role she took in establishing the Cohasset Rec Center, which is like the CREC now it's called, and I think they're starting to sign up teens. So that's pretty exciting. I was really happy to see the information come out. I think it was on Facebook. And then lastly, you all have received an email from a resident in town about a ribbon cutting tomorrow. It's kind of last minute, but it's for a new, it's called the East Coast Recovery Center. It's a new recovery center. It's doing outpatient treatment, which is kind of a step down from like the Evoke Center also in Cohasset. And that's tomorrow, Wednesday, August 25th at 3:30 p.m. at 215 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, which is the former Graham Waste Building. So anybody, especially in town leadership, that can make it, you're more than welcome to join the crew there. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. I'm seeing that email right now. Thanks for the heads up. And it's at 3:30 tomorrow, it looks like. So anyone who can make it, wonderful. Okay, Jack.
Well, again, make it to that vigil. It's so important. And we are very fortunate to have Safe Harbor. What I'd like to, and this is really to the board, I've been following this whole sewer hookup with Situate, and I've been speaking to a number of people. And I do think that we need to, and I'm talking to Katie Dugan as well. And I think it's time that we really reach out to Situate and find out what they want to do. And I think we can cut up, and I've talked to some people from the Sewer Commission. I think we can get a pretty good deal because we're holding a very strong hand. And when you have a strong hand, it's time to do stuff. I think this does not mean that we give up our own ability to take care of the sewer. We can do our own sewerage, but Situate needs to pipe the sewerage to Hull. And by the way, what they're going to pipe is now sitting in our harbor, indirectly diluted, but it's disgusting. So, I would like to kind of spearhead an initiative, if it's a pleasure of the board, to start kind of seeing if we can get serious about that. I know some people in Situate, and I know we have to talk to some people in Hull, but I think Hull will listen once they realize that we're serious. So I think it's time to get that thing doing, and I'd like to help on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think a lot of discussions are already happening, but maybe we need to call a couple more pointed meetings, Jack.
I think it's kind of, it has, my sense is from talking to the players.
It's bubbling over. It's bubbling over. Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Analogy. But I'm good at spearheading things like that.
All right. Thank you. All right, Jean.
Well, just a few quick items. So first, I know that we had decided on our select board goals last month. And so we're about 1 month in, a little less than 10% of the year. And I understand that our monthly progress or our progress towards these goals is going to be on the agenda for the next meeting. And I think it is good to, sort of pretty regularly check the progress and any challenges too, to help clear the way to make sure including as we come upon town meeting, if there's, items that we think we need or money, I think that we should really focus on that for our next few meetings to make sure that, again, we're moving things along as we need to in terms of, supporting zoning reform, a public facilities plan and communication. And so part of what I'm saying is like, we got to communicate about our communications goal. So I think that'd be a positive thing for us to do in part two, to also let people know what's going on sort of behind the scenes. So that's the first issue that I just wanted to raise in terms of future agenda items and just updates generally. Sort of on the similar vein of communication and transparency. For people who are interested, and I know a lot of people are on vacation, but I do anticipate, based on sort of ongoing discussions, that the baseball field lights, which I know is a hot topic, is sort of making its way back to the agenda in September. So look more for that. I don't think it's ready right now, in part two, because so many people are on vacation. We want to make sure people can meaningfully engage on this. So part of this is just a heads up. A few more items. The town hall building committee, I think it would be great to get an update from them sooner rather than later. It seems like there's, some movement going on in the background. This is such a big issue. We know there's a lot of different, back and forth on the issue. And as we come upon the town meeting, December meeting, it may or may not be ripe for then, but I would like to understand sort of where they are, including on issues like relocation, which may not be as straightforward as, just deciding upon it, so to speak. And so I think it would be helpful to get an update and some, airing of the issues there, including for, other members of the public that are interested, who have reached out to me and, want to understand what's going on. And then school committee and board of health, I just want to echo Diane's thanks on just there's a lot of strong feelings on both sides there, and they've just taken a lot of time. And also to the people who weighed in on both sides. I know that there's a lot of strong feelings from people who are sending their children to school, and they have different challenges all around, whether it's their vaccination status or lack thereof, or concerns about kids' abilities to learn and have that, environment. And so along those lines, I think that it would be great, and I'm happy to take this on if folks are interested, and we can put it on the next agenda item, but to reach out to the school committee and say, hey, given where you are right now, what can we as a town do, if anything, to help better support our school system? Because we are moving into a challenging time period where, unfortunately, our kids are the most exposed right now of anyone in our town. And we do not want to return to an unsafe environment or remote learning. And so and there may be nothing other than just moral support that we offer, but I think it's worth at least, reaching out to make sure. So again, we can put that on the agenda if people are so inclined. If you're so inclined, Carrie, for the next time, again, just to help support our school committee colleagues out there to the extent they need it. And then last, I just wanted to also welcome Carol Myers to Cohasset. I know she's done many years of amazing work. I grew up reading the Hingham Journal and her articles. So welcome, Carol.
Yes, thank you for all of that. And I'll reach out to all these people, Jean, Town Hall Building. I'll reach out to Craig and School Committee and see how they're feeling about that. At some point, we may want to have a joint meeting with School Committee to talk about other stuff too. So I made notes of all this stuff, and I agree with you that the communicating about communicating is my favorite thing you said. So that will be especially on our agenda next time. All right. Approval of minutes. We have 2 July meetings and 1 August meeting. Yeah, Corey.
I would make a motion to approve. I have reviewed the minutes and I found them acceptable. Thank you, Jean, for helping us get them to be a nice format. So I'd like to move that we approve the minutes from July 13th, July 27th, and August 3rd, 2021.
Do we have a second? All right, roll call vote.
Until such time as we have electronic archiving of the minutes, I won't vote to approve.
Okay.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple Dye.
Diane Kennedy, I.
Carrie Thompson, I. All right, we have no topics not reasonably anticipated, so it's the big moment. Jack,
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, you beat Corey. Do we have a second?
Well, I take it, I would like to withdraw my motion to adjourn.
Second.
You can't. Too late, Jack. We're going. with
I
the-
already seconded it.
Diane seconded it. We're voting on it. Roll
But
call
Corey
vote.
was starting to cry. My God.
You know what? He can beat you next time.
All right.
Jack, vote.
All right. See everybody later.
Jack, you got to vote to adjourn.
Oh. Let me think. I've been voting strangely tonight. Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye. Thank you all.
Jean Haley Dipple Dye.
Diane Kennedy, I. Night.
Carrie Thompson, aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the last few days of summer.